simply one of usage. As regards territory, we speak of the boundaries of a nation or of an estate, the bounds of a college, a ball ground, etc. Bounds may be used for all within the limits, boundary for the limiting line only. Boundary looks to that which is without, bound only to that which is within. Hence we speak of the bounds, not the boundaries, of a subject, of the universe, etc. We say the students were forbidden to go beyond the bounds. A barrier is something that bars ingress or egress. A barrier may be a boundary, as was the Great Wall of China. Bourne or bourne is a poetical expression for bound or boundary. A border is a strip of land along the boundary. Edge is a sharp terminal line, as where river or ocean meets the land. Limit is now used almost wholly in the figurative sense, as the limit of discussion, of time, of jurisdiction. Line is a military term, as within the lines, or through the lines, of an army. Compare barrier, E&D. Antonyms: center, citadel, estate, inside, interior, land, region, territory. Prepositions: the boundaries of an estate, the boundary between neighboring territories. Start of a new word, brave. Brave. Synonyms: adventurous, courageous, fearless, undaunted, bold, daring, gallant, undismayed, chivalric, dauntless, heroic, valiant, chivalrous, doughty, intrepid, venturesome. The adventurous man goes in quest of danger, the bold man stands out and faces danger or censure, the brave man combines confidence with resolution in presence of danger, the chivalrous man puts himself in peril for others' protection. The daring step out to defy danger, the dauntless will not flinch before anything that may come to them, the doughty will give and take limitless hard knocks. The adventurous finds something romantic in dangerous enterprises, the venturesome may be simply heedless, reckless, or ignorant. All great explorers have been adventurous, children, fools, and criminals are venturesome. The fearless and intrepid possess unshaken nerves in any place of danger. Courageous is more than brave, adding a moral element. The courageous man steadily encounters perils to which he may be keenly sensitive, at the call of duty. The gallant are brave in a dashing, showy, and splendid way, the valiant not only dare great dangers, but achieve great results, the heroic are nobly daring and dauntless, truly chivalrous, sublimely courageous. Compare fortitude. Antonyms: afraid, cringing, fearful, pusillanimous, timid, cowardly, faint-hearted, frightened, shrinking, timorous. Start of a new word, break. Break. Synonyms: bankrupt, crack, destroy, rive, shatter, split, burst, crush, fracture, rupture, shiver, sunder, cashier, demolish, rend, sever, smash, transgress. To break is to divide sharply, with severance of particles, as by a blow or strain. To burst is to break by pressure from within, as a bombshell, but it is used also for the result of violent force otherwise exerted, as, to burst in a door, where the door yields as if to an explosion. To crush is to break by pressure from without, as an egg-shell. To crack is to break without complete severance of parts, a cracked cup or mirror may still hold together. Fracture has a somewhat similar sense. In a fractured limb, the ends of the broken bone may be separated, though both portions are still retained within the common muscular tissue. A shattered object is broken suddenly and in numerous directions, as a vase is shattered by a blow, a building by an earthquake. A shivered glass is broken into numerous minute, needle-like fragments. To smash is to break thoroughly to pieces with a crashing sound by some sudden act of violence. A watch once smashed will scarcely be worth repair. To split is to cause wood to crack or part in the way of the grain, and is applied to any other case where a natural tendency to separation is enforced by an external cause, as, to split a convention or a party. To demolish is to beat down, as a mound, building, fortress, etc. To destroy is to put by any process beyond restoration physically, mentally, or morally. To destroy an army is so to shatter and scatter it that it cannot be rallied or reassembled as a fighting force. Compare rend. Antonyms: attach, bind, fasten, join, mend, secure, solder, unite, weld. Prepositions: break to pieces, or in pieces, into several pieces, when the object is thought of as divided rather than shattered. Break with a friend, from or away from a suppliant, break into a house, out of prison, break across one's knee, break through a hedge, break in upon one's retirement, break over the rules, break on or upon the shore, against the rocks. Start of a new word: brutish. Brutish. Synonyms: animal, brutal, ignorant, sensual, swinish, base, brute, imbruted, sottish, unintellectual, beastly, carnal, insensible, stolid, unspiritual, bestial, coarse, lascivious, stupid, vile. A brutish man simply follows his animal instincts, without special inclination to do harm. The brutal have always a spirit of malice and cruelty. Brute has no special character, except as indicating what a brute might possess. Much the same is true of animal, except that animal leans more to the side of sensuality, brute to that of force, as appears in the familiar phrase brute force. Hunger is an animal appetite. A brute impulse suddenly prompts one to strike a blow in anger. Bestial, in modern usage, implies an intensified and degrading animalism. Any supremacy of the animal or brute instincts over the intellectual and spiritual in man is base and vile. Beastly refers largely to the outward and visible consequences of excess, as beastly drunkenness. Compare animal. Antonyms: elevated, exalted, great, intellectual, noble, enlightened, grand, humane, intelligent, refined. Start of a new word: burn. Burn. Synonyms: blaze, char, flame, incinerate, set fire to, brand, consume, flash, kindle, set on fire, cauterize, cremate, ignite, scorch, singe. To burn is to subject to the action of fire, or of intense heat so as to effect either partial change or complete combustion, as, to burn wood in the fire, to burn one's hand on a hot stove. The sun burns the face. One brands with a hot iron, but cauterizes with some corrosive substance, as silver nitrate. Cremate is now used specifically for consuming a dead body by intense heat. To incinerate is to reduce to ashes. The sense differs little from that of cremate, but it is in less popular use. To kindle is to set on fire, as if with a candle. Ignite is the more learned and scientific word for the same thing, extending even to the heating of metals to a state of incandescence without burning. To scorch and to singe are superficial, and to char usually so. Both kindle and burn have an extensive figurative use, as, to kindle strife, to burn with wrath, love, devotion, curiosity. Compare light. Antonyms: cool, extinguish, put out, smother, stifle, subdue. Prepositions: to burn in the fire, burn with fire, burn to the ground, burn to ashes, burn through the skin, or the roof, burn into the soil, etc. Start of a new word: business. Business. Synonyms: affair, commerce, handicraft, trading, art, concern, job, traffic, avocation, craft, occupation, transaction, barter, duty, profession, vocation, calling, employment, trade, work. A business is what one follows regularly. An occupation is what he happens at any time to be engaged in. Trout fishing may be one's occupation for a time, as a relief from business. Business is ordinarily for profit, while the occupation may be a matter of learning, philanthropy, or religion. A profession implies scholarship, as, the learned professions. Pursuit is an occupation which one follows with ardor. An avocation is what calls one away from other work, a vocation or calling, that to which one is called by some special fitness or sense of duty. Thus, we speak of the gospel ministry as a vocation or calling, rather than a business. Trade or trading is, in general, the exchanging of one thing for another. In the special sense, a trade is an occupation involving manual training and skilled labor, as, the ancient Jews held that every boy should learn a trade. A transaction is a single action, whether in business, diplomacy, or otherwise. Affair has a similar, but lighter meaning, as, this little affair, an important transaction. The plural affairs has a distinctive meaning, including all activities where men deal with one another on any considerable scale, as a man of affairs. A job is a piece of work viewed as a single undertaking, and ordinarily paid for as such. Trade and commerce may be used as equivalents, but trade is capable of a more limited application. We speak of the trade of a village, the commerce of a nation. Barter is the direct exchange of commodities. Business, trade, and commerce are chiefly transacted by means of money, bills of exchange, etc. Business, occupation, etc. may be what one does independently, employment may be in the service of another. Work is any application of energy to secure a result, or the result thus secured. Thus, we speak of the work of God. Art in the industrial sense is a system of rules and accepted methods for the accomplishment of some practical result, as the art of printing, collectively, the arts. A craft is some occupation requiring technical skill or manual dexterity, or the persons collectively engaged in its exercise, as the weaver's craft. Prepositions: the business of a druggist, in business with his father, doing business for his father, have you business with me? Business in New York, business about, concerning, or in regard to certain property. Start of a new word, but. Synonyms: and, however, notwithstanding, that, barely, just, only, though, besides, merely, provided, unless, except, moreover, save, yet. Further, nevertheless, still, but ranges from the faintest contrast to absolute negation, as, I am willing to go, but, on the other hand, content to stay. He is not an honest man, but, on the contrary, a villain. The contrast may be with a silent thought, as, but let us go, it being understood that we might stay longer. In restrictive use, except and excepting are slightly more emphatic than but. We say, no injury but a scratch, or, no injury except some painful bruises. Such expressions as words are but breath, nothing but, may be referred to the restrictive use by ellipsis. So may the use of but in the sense of unless, as, it never rains but it pours. To the same head must be referred the conditional use, as, you may go, but with your father's consent, i.e., provided you have, except that you must have, etc. Doubt but is now less used than the more logical doubt that. But never becomes a full synonym for and adds something like, but adds something different. Brave and tender implies that tenderness is natural to the brave. Brave but tender implies that bravery and tenderness are rarely combined. For the concessive use, compare notwithstanding. Start of a new word, by. Synonyms: by dint of, by means of, through, with. By refers to the agent, through, to the means, cause, or condition, with, to the instrument. By commonly refers to persons, with, to things, through may refer to either. The road having become impassable through long disuse, a way was opened by pioneers with axes. By may, however, be applied to any object which is viewed as partaking of action and agency, as, the metal was corroded by the acid, skill is gained by practice. We speak of communicating with a person by letter. Through implies a more distant connection than by or with, and more intervening elements. Material objects are perceived by the mind through the senses. Start of a new word, cabal. Synonyms: combination, confederacy, crew, gang, conclave, conspiracy, faction, junto. A conspiracy is a combination of persons for an evil purpose, or the act of so combining. Conspiracy is a distinct crime under common, and generally under statutory, law. A faction is more extensive than a conspiracy, less formal in organization, less definite in plan. Faction and its adjective, factious, have always an unfavorable sense. Cabal commonly denotes a conspiracy of leaders. A gang is a company of workmen all doing the same work under one leader. The word is used figuratively only of combinations which it is meant to stigmatize as rude and mercenary. Crew is used in a closely similar sense. A conclave is secret, but of larger numbers, ordinarily, than a cabal, and may have honorable use, as, the conclave of cardinals. Start of a new word, calculate. Calculate. Synonyms: account, consider, enumerate, rate, cast, count, estimate, reckon, compute, deem, number, sum up. Number is the generic term. To count is to number one by one. To calculate is to use more complicated processes, as multiplication, division, etc., more rapid but not less exact. Compute allows more of the element of probability, which is still more strongly expressed by estimate. We compute the slain in a great war from the number known to have fallen in certain great battles. Compute refers to the present or the past, estimate more frequently to the future, as, to estimate the cost of a proposed building. To enumerate is to mention item by item, as, to enumerate one's grievances. To rate is to estimate by comparison, as if the object were one of a series. We count upon a desired future, we do not count upon the undesired. As applied to the present, we reckon or count a thing precious or worthless. Compare esteem. Prepositions: it is vain to calculate on or upon an uncertain result. Start of a new word, call. Call. Synonyms: bawl, cry, out, roar, shriek, bellow, ejaculate, scream, vociferate, clamor, exclaim, shout, yell. To call is to send out the voice in order to attract another's attention, either by word or by inarticulate utterance. Animals call their mates, or their young, a man calls his dog, his horse, etc. The sense is extended to include summons by bell, or any signal. To shout is to call or exclaim with the fullest volume of sustained voice. To scream is to utter a shriller cry. To shriek or to yell refers to that which is louder and wilder still. We shout words. In screaming, shrieking, or yelling there is often no attempt at articulation. To bawl is to utter senseless, noisy cries, as of a child in pain or anger. Bellow and roar are applied to the utterances of animals, and only contemptuously to those of persons. To clamor is to utter with noisy iteration, it applies also to the confused cries of a multitude. To vociferate is commonly applied to loud and excited speech where there is little besides the exertion of voice. In exclaiming, the utterance may not be strikingly, though somewhat, above the ordinary tone and pitch. We may exclaim by mere interjections, or by connected words, but always by some articulate utterance. To ejaculate is to throw out brief, disconnected, but coherent utterances of joy, regret, and especially of appeal, petition, prayer. The use of such devotional utterances has received the special name of ejaculatory prayer. To cry out is to give forth a louder and more excited utterance than in exclaiming or calling. One often exclaims with sudden joy as well as sorrow. If he cries out, it is oftener in grief or agony. In the most common colloquial usage, to cry is to express grief or pain by weeping or sobbing. One may exclaim, cry out, or ejaculate with no thought of others' presence. When he calls, it is to attract another's attention. Antonyms: be silent, be still, hark, hearken, hush, list, listen. Start of a new word, calm. Calm. Synonyms: collected, imperturbable, sedate, still, composed, peaceful, self-possessed, tranquil, cool, placid, serene, undisturbed, dispassionate, quiet, smooth, unruffled. That is calm which is free from disturbance or agitation. In the physical sense, free from violent motion or action. In the mental or spiritual realm, free from excited or disturbing emotion or passion. We speak of a calm sea, a placid lake, a serene sky, a still night, a quiet day, a quiet home. We speak, also, of still waters, smooth sailing, which are different modes of expressing freedom from manifest agitation. Of mental conditions, one is calm who triumphs over a tendency to excitement, cool, if he scarcely feels the tendency. One may be calm by the very reaction from excitement, or by the oppression of overpowering emotion, as we speak of the calmness of despair. One is composed who has subdued excited feeling, He is collected when he has every thought, feeling, or perception awake and at command. Tranquil refers to a present state, placid, to a prevailing tendency. We speak of a tranquil mind, a placid disposition. The serene spirit dwells as if in the clear upper air, above all storm and shadow. The star of the unconquered will, he rises in my breast, serene, and resolute, and still, and calm, and self-possessed. Longfellow Light of Stars Street 7. Antonyms: agitated, excited, frenzied, passionate, ruffled, violent, boisterous, fierce, furious, raging, stormy, wild, disturbed, frantic, heated, roused, turbulent, wrathful. Start of a new word: cancel. Cancel. Synonyms: abolish, discharge, nullify, rescind, abrogate, efface, obliterate, revoke, annul, erase, quash, rub off or out, blot out, expunge, remove, scratch out, cross off or out, make void, repeal, vacate. Cancel, efface, erase, expunge, and obliterate have as their first meaning the removal of written characters or other forms of record. To cancel is, literally, to make a lattice by cross lines, exactly our English cross out. To efface is to rub off, smooth away the face, as of an inscription. To erase is to scratch out, commonly for the purpose of writing something else in the same space. To expunge is to punch out with some sharp instrument, so as to show that the words are no longer part of the writing. To obliterate is to cover over or remove, as a letter, as was done by reversing the Roman stylus, and rubbing out with the rounded end what had been written with the point on the waxen tablet. What has been cancelled, erased, expunged, may perhaps still be traced. What is obliterated is gone forever, as if it had never been. In many establishments, when a debt is discharged by payment, the record is cancelled. The figurative use of the words keeps close to the primary sense. Compare: abolish. Antonyms: approve, enact, establish, perpetuate, reenact, uphold, confirm, enforce, maintain, record, sustain, write. Start of a new word: candid. Candid. Synonyms: aboveboard, honest, open, truthful, artless, impartial, simple, unbiased, fair, ingenuous, sincere, unprejudiced, frank, innocent, straightforward, unreserved, guileless, naive, transparent, unsophisticated. A candid statement is meant to be true to the real facts and just to all parties. A fair statement is really so. Fair is applied to the conduct, candid is not, as fair treatment, a fair field, and no favor. One who is frank has a fearless and unconstrained truthfulness. Honest and ingenuous unite in expressing contempt for deceit. On the other hand, artless, guileless, naive, simple, and unsophisticated express the goodness which comes from want of the knowledge or thought of evil. As truth is not always agreeable or timely, candid and frank have often an objectionable sense. To be candid with you, to be perfectly frank, are regarded as sure preludes to something disagreeable. Open and unreserved may imply unstudied truthfulness or defiant recklessness, as open admiration, open robbery. There may be transparent integrity or transparent fraud. Sincere applies to the feelings, as being all that one's words would imply. Antonyms: adroit, cunning, diplomatic, intriguing, sharp, subtle, artful, deceitful, foxy, knowing, shrewd, tricky, crafty, designing, insincere, maneuvering, sly, wily. Prepositions: candid in debate, candid to or toward opponents, candid with friend or foe, to be candid about or in regard to the matter. Start of a new word: caparison. Caparison. Synonyms: accoutrements, harness, housings, trappings. Harness was formerly used of the armor of a knight as well as of a horse. It is now used almost exclusively of the straps and appurtenances worn by a horse when attached to a vehicle. The animal is said to be kind in harness. The other words apply to the ornamental outfit of a horse, especially under saddle. We speak also of the accoutrements of a soldier. Caparison is used rarely and somewhat slightingly, and trappings quite contemptuously, for showy human apparel. Compare arms, dress. Start of a new word, capital. Capital. Synonyms: chief city, metropolis, seat of government. The metropolis is the chief city in the commercial, the capital in the political sense. The capital of an American state is rarely its metropolis. Start of a new word, care. Care. Synonyms: anxiety, concern, oversight, trouble, attention, direction, perplexity, vigilance, caution, forethought, precaution, wariness, charge, heed, prudence, watchfulness, circumspection, management, solicitude, worry. Care concerns what we possess, anxiety, often, what we do not. Riches bring many cares, poverty brings many anxieties. Care also signifies watchful attention, in view of possible harm, as, this side up with care, take care of yourself, or, as a sharp warning, take care. Caution has a sense of possible harm and risk only to be escaped, if at all, by careful deliberation and observation. Care inclines to the positive, caution to the negative. Care is shown in doing, caution largely in not doing. Precaution is allied with care, prudence with caution. A man rides a dangerous horse with care. Caution will keep him from mounting the horse. Precaution looks to the saddle girths, bit and bridle, and all that may make the rider secure. Circumspection is watchful observation and calculation, but without the timidity implied in caution. Concern denotes a serious interest, milder than anxiety, as, concern for the safety of a ship at sea. Heed implies attention without disquiet. It is now largely displaced by attention and care. Solicitude involves especially the element of desire, not expressed in anxiety, and of hopefulness, not implied in care. A parent feels constant solicitude for his children's welfare, anxiety as to dangers that threaten it, with care to guard against them. Watchfulness recognizes the possibility of danger, wariness the probability. A man who is not influenced by caution to keep out of danger may display great wariness in the midst of it. Care has also the sense of responsibility, with possible control, as expressed in charge, management, oversight, as, these children are under my care, send the money to me in care of the firm. Compare alarm, anxiety, prudence. Antonyms: carelessness, inattention, negligence, oversight, remissness, disregard, indifference, omission, recklessness, slight. Heedlessness, neglect. Prepositions: take care of the house, for the future, about the matter. Start of a new word, career. Career. Synonyms: charge, flight, passage, race, course, line of achievement, public life, rush. A career was originally the ground for a race, or, especially, for a knight's charge in tournament or battle, whence career was early applied to the charge itself. If you will use the lance, take ground for your career. The four horsemen met in full career. Scott Quinton Durward Chapter 14 page 194. D.F. and Co. In its figurative use, career signifies some continuous and conspicuous work, usually a life work, and most frequently one of honorable achievement. Compare business. Start of a new word, caress. Caress. Synonyms: coddle, embrace, fondle, pamper, court, flatter, kiss, pet. To caress is less than to embrace, more dignified and less familiar than to fondle. A visitor caresses a friend's child, a mother fondles her babe. Fondling is always by touch, caressing may be also by words, or other tender and pleasing attentions. Antonyms: see synonyms for affront. Prepositions: caressed by or with the hand, caressed by admirers, at court. Start of a new word, caricature. Caricature. Synonyms: burlesque, extravaganza, mimicry, takeoff, exaggeration, imitation, parody, travesty. A caricature is a grotesque exaggeration of striking features or peculiarities, generally of a person. A burlesque treats any subject in an absurd or incongruous manner. A burlesque is written or acted, a caricature is more commonly in sketch or picture. A parody changes the subject, but keeps the style. A travesty keeps the subject, but changes the style. a burlesque does not hold itself to either subject or style, but is content with a general resemblance to what it may imitate. A caricature, parody, or travesty must have an original. A burlesque may be an independent composition. An account of a schoolboy's quarrel after the general manner of Homer's Iliad would be a burlesque. The real story of the Iliad told in newspaper style would be a travesty. An extravaganza is a fantastic composition, musical, dramatic, or narrative. Imitation is serious, mimicry is either intentionally or unintentionally comical. Start of a new word, carry. Carry. Synonyms: bear, convey, move, sustain, transmit, bring, lift, remove, take, transport. A person may bear a load either when in motion or at rest. He carries it only when in motion. The stooping Atlas bears the world on his shoulders, swiftly moving time carries the hourglass and scythe. A person may be said either to bear or to carry a scar, since it is upon him whether in motion or at rest. If an object is to be moved from the place we occupy, we say carry; if to the place we occupy, we say bring. A messenger carries a letter to a correspondent, and brings an answer. Take is often used in this sense in place of carry, as, take that letter to the office. Carry often signifies to transport by personal strength, without reference to the direction, as, that is more than he can carry, yet, even so, it would not be admissible to say carry it to me, or carry it here. In such case we must say bring. To lift is simply to raise from the ground, though but for an instant, with no reference to holding or moving. One may be able to lift what he could not carry. The figurative uses of carry are very numerous, as, to carry an election, carry the country, carry, in the sense of capture, a fort, carry an audience, carry a stock of goods, etc. Compare convey, keep, support. Antonyms: drop, fall under, give up, let go, shake off, throw down, throw off. Prepositions: to carry coals to Newcastle, carry nothing from, or out of, this house. He carried these qualities into all he did: carry across the street, over the bridge, through the woods, around or round the corner, beyond the river. The cable was carried under the sea. Start of a new word, catastrophe. Catastrophe. Synonyms: calamity, denouement, mischance, mishap, cataclysm, disaster, misfortune, sequel. A cataclysm or catastrophe is some great convulsion or momentous event that may or may not be a cause of misery to man. In calamity, or disaster, the thought of human suffering is always present. It has been held by many geologists that numerous catastrophes or cataclysms antedated the existence of man. In literature, the final event of a drama is the catastrophe, or denouement. Misfortune ordinarily suggests less of suddenness and violence than calamity or disaster, and is especially applied to that which is lingering or enduring in its effects. In history, the end of every great war or the fall of a nation is a catastrophe, though it may not be a calamity. Yet such an event, if not a calamity to the race, will always involve much individual disaster and misfortune. Pestilence is a calamity, a defeat in battle, a shipwreck, or a failure in business is a disaster. Sickness or loss of property is a misfortune. Failure to meet a friend is a mischance. The breaking of a teacup is a mishap. Antonyms: benefit, boon, favor, pleasure, prosperity, blessing, comfort, help, privilege, success. Preposition: the catastrophe of a play, of a siege, rarely, to a person, etc. Start of a new word, catch. Catch. Synonyms: apprehend, comprehend, grasp, overtake, snatch, capture, discover, grip, secure, take, clasp, ensnare, gripe, seize, take hold of. Clutch, entrap, lay hold of, on, upon. To catch is to come up with or take possession of something departing, fugitive, or elusive. We catch a runaway horse, a flying ball, a mouse in a trap. We clutch with a swift, tenacious movement of the fingers. We grasp with a firm but moderate closure of the whole hand. We grip or gripe with the strongest muscular closure of the whole hand possible to exert. We clasp in the arms. We snatch with a quick, sudden, and usually a surprising motion. In the figurative sense, catch is used of any act that brings a person or thing into our power or possession, as, to catch a criminal in the act, to catch an idea, in the sense of apprehend or comprehend. Compare arrest. Antonyms: fail of, give up, lose, release, throw aside, fall short of, let go, miss, restore, throw away. Prepositions: to catch at a straw, to catch a fugitive by the collar, to catch a ball with the left hand, he caught the disease from the patient, the thief was caught in the act, the bird in the snare. Start of a new word, cause. Cause. Synonyms: actor, causality, designer, occasion, precedent, agent, causation, former, origin, reason, antecedent, condition, fountain, originator, source, author, creator, motive, power, spring. The efficient cause, that which makes anything to be or be done, is the common meaning of the word, as in the saying, there is no effect without a cause. Every man instinctively recognizes himself acting through will as the cause of his own actions. The Creator is the great first cause of all things. A condition is something that necessarily precedes a result, but does not produce it. An antecedent simply precedes a result, with or without any agency in producing it, as, Monday is the invariable antecedent of Tuesday, but not the cause of it. The direct antonym of cause is effect, while that of antecedent is consequent. An occasion is some event which brings a cause into action at a particular moment. Gravitation and heat are the causes of an avalanche, the steep incline of the mountainside is a necessary condition, and the shout of the traveler may be the occasion of its fall. Causality is the doctrine or principle of causes, causation the action or working of causes. Compare design, reason. Antonyms: consequence, development, end, fruit, outcome, product, creation, effect, event, issue, outgrowth, result. Prepositions: the cause of the disaster, cause for interference. Start of a new word, cease. Cease. Synonyms: abstain, desist, give over, quit, bring to an end, discontinue, intermit, refrain, come to an end, leave off, stop, conclude, finish, pause, terminate. Strains of music may gradually or suddenly cease. A man quits work on the instant, he may discontinue a practice gradually, he quits suddenly and completely, he stops short in what he may or may not resume, he pauses in what he will probably resume. What intermits or is intermitted returns again, as a fever that intermits. Compare abandon, die, and rest. Antonyms: begin, inaugurate, originate, set going, set on foot, commence, initiate, set about, set in operation, start. Enter upon, institute, preposition, cease from anger. Start of a new word, celebrate. Celebrate. Synonyms: commemorate, keep, observe, solemnize. To celebrate any event or occasion is to make some demonstration of respect or rejoicing because of or in memory of it, or to perform such public rites or ceremonies as it properly demands. We celebrate the birth, commemorate the death of one beloved or honored. We celebrate a national anniversary with music and song, with firing of guns and ringing of bells. We commemorate by any solemn and thoughtful service, or by a monument or other enduring memorial. We keep the Sabbath, solemnize a marriage, observe an anniversary. We celebrate or observe the Lord's Supper in which believers commemorate the sufferings and death of Christ. Antonyms: contemn, dishonor, forget, neglect, profane, despise, disregard, ignore, overlook, violate. Prepositions: we celebrate the day with appropriate ceremonies. The victory was celebrated by the people, with rejoicing. Start of a new word, center. Center. Synonyms: middle, midst. We speak of the center of a circle, the middle of a room, the middle of the street, the midst of a forest. The center is equally distant from every point of the circumference of a circle, or from the opposite boundaries on each axis of a parallelogram, etc. The middle is more general and less definite. The center is a point, the middle may be a line or a space. We say at the center, in the middle. Midst commonly implies a group or multitude of surrounding objects. Compare synonyms for amid. Antonyms: bound, boundary, circumference, perimeter, rim. Start of a new word: chagrin. Chagrin. Synonyms: confusion, discomposure, humiliation, shame, disappointment, dismay, mortification, vexation. Chagrin unites disappointment with some degree of humiliation. A rainy day may bring disappointment, needless failure in some enterprise brings chagrin. Shame involves the consciousness of fault, guilt, or impropriety, chagrin of failure of judgment, or harm to reputation. A consciousness that one has displayed his own ignorance will cause him mortification, however worthy his intent. If there was a design to deceive, the exposure will cover him with shame. Antonyms: delight, exultation, glory, rejoicing, triumph. Prepositions: he felt deep chagrin at, because of, on account of, failure. Start of a new word: change. Change. Synonyms: alter, exchange, shift, transmute, commute, metamorphose, substitute, turn, convert, modify, transfigure, vary, diversify, qualify, transform, veer. To change is distinctively to make a thing other than it has been, in some respect at least. To exchange, to put or take something else in its place. To alter is ordinarily to change partially, to make different in one or more particulars. To exchange is often to transfer ownership, as, to exchange city for country property. Change is often used in the sense of exchange, as, to change horses. To transmute is to change the qualities while the substance remains the same, as, to transmute the baser metals into gold. To transform is to change form or appearance, with or without deeper and more essential change. It is less absolute than transmute, though sometimes used for that word, and is often used in a spiritual sense as transmute could not be, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, Rom 12:2. Transfigure is, as in its scriptural use, to change in an exalted and glorious spiritual way. Jesus was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light, Matt 17:1-2. To metamorphose is to make some remarkable change, ordinarily in external qualities, but often in structure, use, or chemical constitution, as of a caterpillar into a butterfly, of the stamens of a plant into petals, or of the crystalline structure of rocks, hence called metamorphic rocks, as when a limestone is metamorphosed into a marble. To vary is to change from time to time, often capriciously. To commute is to put something easier, lighter, milder, or in some way more favorable in place of that which is commuted, as, to commute capital punishment to imprisonment for life, to commute daily fares on a railway to a monthly payment. To convert, with, and verto, turn, is to primarily turn about, and signifies to change in form, character, use, etc., through a wide range of relations. Iron is converted into steel, joy into grief, a sinner into a saint. To turn is a popular word for change in any sense short of the meaning of exchange, being often equivalent to alter, convert, transform, transmute, etc. We modify or qualify a statement which might seem too strong. We modify it by some limitation, qualify it by some addition. Antonyms: abide, continue, hold, persist, retain, bide, endure, keep, remain, stay. Prepositions: to change a home toilet for a street dress, to change from a caterpillar to or into a butterfly, to change clothes with a beggar. Start of a new word: change. Change. Synonyms: alteration, mutation, renewing, transmutation, conversion, novelty, revolution, variation, diversity, regeneration, transformation, variety, innovation, renewal, transition, vicissitude. A change is a passing from one state or form to another, any act or process by which a thing becomes unlike what it was before, or the unlikeness so produced. We say a change was taking place, or the change that had taken place was manifest. Mutation is a more formal word for change, often suggesting repeated or continual change, as, the mutations of fortune. Novelty is a change to what is new, or the newness of that to which a change is made, as, he was perpetually desirous of novelty. Revolution is specifically and most commonly a change of government. Variation is a partial change in form, qualities, etc., but especially in position or action, as, the variation of the magnetic needle or of the pulse. Variety is a succession of changes or an intermixture of different things, and is always thought of as agreeable. Vicissitude is sharp, sudden, or violent change, always thought of as surprising and often as disturbing or distressing, as, the vicissitudes of politics. Transition is change by passing from one place or state to another, especially in a natural, regular, or orderly way, as, the transition from spring to summer, or from youth to manhood. An innovation is a change that breaks in upon an established order or custom, as, an innovation in religion or politics. For the distinctions between the other words, compare the synonyms for change, v. In the religious sense, regeneration is the vital renewing of the soul by the power of the divine spirit. Conversion is the conscious and manifest change from evil to good, or from a lower to a higher spiritual state, as, in Luke 22:32, when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. In popular use, conversion is the most common word to express the idea of regeneration. Antonyms: constancy, fixedness, invariability, steadiness, continuance, fixity, permanence, unchangeableness, firmness, identity, persistence, uniformity. Prepositions: we have made a change for the better, the change from winter to spring, the change of a liquid to or into a gas, a change in quality, a change by absorption or oxidation. Start of a new word, character. Character. Synonyms: constitution, genius, personality, reputation, temper, disposition, nature, record, spirit, temperament. Character is what one is, reputation, what he is thought to be, his record is the total of his known action or inaction. As a rule, a man's record will substantially express his character. His reputation may be higher or lower than his character or record will justify. Repute is a somewhat formal word, with the same general sense as reputation. One's nature includes all his original endowments or propensities. Character includes both natural and acquired traits. We speak of one's physical constitution as strong or weak, etc., and figuratively, always with the adjective, of his mental or moral constitution. Compare characteristic. Prepositions: the witness has a character for veracity, his character is above suspicion, the character of the applicant. Start of a new word, characteristic. Characteristic. Synonyms: attribute, feature, peculiarity, sign, trace, character, indication, property, singularity, trait. Distinction, mark, quality. A characteristic belongs to the nature or character of the person, thing, or class, and serves to identify an object, as, a copper-colored skin, high cheekbones, and straight, black hair are characteristics of the American Indian. A sign is manifest to an observer. A mark or a characteristic may be more difficult to discover. An insensible person may show signs of life, while sometimes only close examination will disclose marks of violence. Pallor is ordinarily a mark of fear, but in some brave natures it is simply a characteristic of intense earnestness. Mark is sometimes used in a good, but often in a bad sense. We speak of the characteristic of a gentleman, the mark of a villain. Compare attribute, character. Start of a new word, charming. Charming. Synonyms: bewitching, delightful, enrapturing, fascinating, captivating, enchanting, entrancing, winning. That is charming or bewitching which is adapted to win others as by a magic spell. Enchanting, enrapturing, entrancing represent the influence as not only supernatural, but irresistible and delightful. That which is fascinating may win without delighting, drawing by some unseen power, as a serpent its prey. We can speak of horrible fascination. Charming applies only to what is external to oneself, delightful may apply to personal experiences or emotions as well. We speak of a charming manner, a charming dress, but of delightful anticipations. Compare amiable, beautiful. Start of a new word, chasten. Chasten. Synonyms: afflict, chastise, discipline, punish, refine, subdue, castigate, correct, humble, purify, soften, try. Castigate and chastise refer strictly to corporal punishment, though both are somewhat archaic. Correct and punish are often used as euphemisms in preference to either. Punish is distinctly retributive in sense, chastise, partly retributive, and partly corrective, chasten, wholly corrective. Chasten is used exclusively in the spiritual sense, and chiefly of the visitation of God. Prepositions: we are chastened of the Lord, 1 Cor 11:32, they chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, Heb 12:10, chasten in thy hot displeasure, PS 4:7, chasten with pain, by trials and sorrows. Start of a new word, cherish. Cherish. Synonyms: cheer, encourage, harbor, nurse, shelter, cling to, entertain, hold dear, nurture, treasure, comfort, foster, nourish, protect, value. To cherish is both to hold dear and to treat as dear. Mere unexpressed esteem would not be cherishing. In the marriage vow, to love, honor, and cherish, the word cherish implies all that each can do by love and tenderness for the welfare and happiness of the other, as by support, protection, care in sickness, comfort in sorrow, sympathy, and help of every kind. To nurse is to tend the helpless or feeble, as infants, or the sick or wounded. To nourish is strictly to sustain and build up by food. To nurture includes careful mental and spiritual training, with something of love and tenderness. To foster is simply to maintain and care for. To bring up, a foster child will be nourished, but may not be as tenderly nurtured or as lovingly cherished as if one's own. In the figurative sense, the opinion one cherishes he holds, not with mere cold conviction, but with loving devotion. Antonyms: see synonyms for abandon, chasten. Start of a new word, choose. Choose. Synonyms: cull, elect, pick, pick out, prefer, select. Prefer indicates a state of desire and approval, choose, an act of will. Prudence or generosity may lead one to choose what he does not prefer. Select implies a careful consideration of the reasons for preference and choice. Among objects so nearly alike that we have no reason to prefer any one to another, we may simply choose the nearest, but we could not be said to select it. Aside from theology, elect is popularly confined to the political sense, as, a free people elect their own rulers. Cull, from the Latin colligere, commonly means to collect, as well as to select. In a garden we cull the choicest flowers. Antonyms: cast away, decline, dismiss, refuse, repudiate, cast out, disclaim, leave, reject, throw aside. Prepositions: choose from or from among the number, choose out of the army, choose between, or betwixt, two, among many, choose for the purpose. Start of a new word, circumlocution. Circumlocution. Synonyms: diffuseness, prolixity, surplusage, verbiage, periphrasis, redundance, tautology, verbosity, pleonasm, redundancy, tediousness, wordiness. Circumlocution and periphrasis are roundabout ways of expressing thought. Circumlocution is the more common, periphrasis the more technical word. Constant circumlocution produces an affected and heavy style. Occasionally, skillful periphrasis conduces both to beauty and to simplicity. Etymologically, diffuseness is a scattering, both of words and thought. Redundancy is an overflow. Prolixity goes into endless petty details, without selection or perspective. Pleonasm is the expression of an idea already plainly implied. Tautology is the restatement in other words of an idea already stated, or a useless repetition of a word or words. Pleonasm may add emphasis. Tautology is always a fault. I saw it with my eyes is a pleonasm. All the members agreed unanimously is tautology. Verbiage is the use of mere words without thought. Verbosity and wordiness denote an excess of words in proportion to the thought. Tediousness is the sure result of any of these faults of style. Antonyms: brevity, compression, condensation, plainness, succinctness, compactness, conciseness, directness, shortness, terseness. Start of a new word: circumstance. Circumstance. Synonyms: accompaniment, fact, item, point, concomitant, feature, occurrence, position, detail, incident, particular. Situation. Event: a circumstance, circum, around, and sto, stand, is something existing or occurring in connection with or relation to some other fact or event, modifying or throwing light upon the principal matter without affecting its essential character. An accompaniment is something that unites with the principal matter, though not necessary to it, as the piano accompaniment to a song. A concomitant goes with a thing in natural connection, but in a subordinate capacity, or perhaps in contrast, as cheerfulness is a concomitant of virtue. A circumstance is not strictly, nor usually, an occasion, condition, effect, or result. See these words under cause. Nor is the circumstance properly an incident. See under accident. We say, my decision will depend upon circumstances, not upon incidents. That a man wore a blue necktie would not probably be the cause, occasion, condition, or concomitant of his committing murder, but it might be a very important circumstance in identifying him as the murderer. All the circumstances make up the situation. A certain disease is the cause of a man's death, his suffering is an incident, that he is in his own home, that he has good medical attendance, careful nursing, etc., are consolatory circumstances. With the same idea of subordination, we often say, this is not a circumstance to that. So a person is said to be in easy circumstances. Compare event. Prepositions: mere situation is expressed by in the circumstances, action effected is performed under the circumstances. Start of a new word: class. Class. Synonyms: association, circle, clique, company, grade, rank, caste, clan, club, coterie, order, set. A class is a number or body of persons or objects having common pursuits, purposes, attributes, or characteristics. A caste is hereditary. A class may be independent of lineage or descent. Membership in a caste is supposed to be for life. Membership in a class may be very transient. A religious and ceremonial sacredness attaches to the caste, as not to the class. The rich and the poor form separate classes, yet individuals are constantly passing from each to the other. The classes in a college remain the same, but their membership changes every year. We speak of rank among hereditary nobility or military officers, of various orders of the priesthood. By accommodation, we may refer in a general way to the higher ranks, the lower orders of any society. Grade implies some regular scale of valuation, and some inherent qualities for which a person or thing is placed higher or lower in the scale, as, the coarser and finer grades of wool, a man of an inferior grade. A coterie is a small company of persons of similar tastes, who meet frequently in an informal way, rather for social enjoyment than for any serious purpose. Clique has always an unfavorable meaning. A clique is always fractional, implying some greater gathering of which it is a part. The association breaks up into cliques. Persons unite in a coterie through simple liking for one another. They withdraw into a clique largely through aversion to outsiders. A set, while exclusive, is more extensive than a clique, and chiefly of persons who are united by common social station, etc. Circle is similar in meaning to set, but of wider application. We speak of scientific and religious as well as of social circles. Prepositions: a class of merchants, the senior class at, sometimes of, Harvard, the classes in college. Start of a new word: cleanse. Cleanse. Synonyms: brush, dust, purify, scour, sponge, wash, clean, lave, rinse, scrub, sweep, wipe. Disinfect, mop. To clean is to make clean by removing dirt, impurities, or soil of any kind. Cleanse implies a worse condition to start from, and more to do, than clean. Hercules cleansed the Augean stables. Cleanse is especially applied to purifying processes where liquid is used, as in the flushing of a street, etc. We brush clothing if dusty, sponge it, or sponge it off, if soiled, or sponge off a spot. Furniture, books, etc., are dusted, floors are mopped or scrubbed, metallic utensils are scoured, a room is swept, soiled garments are washed, foul air or water is purified. Cleanse and purify are used extensively in a moral sense, wash in that sense is archaic. Compare amend. Antonyms: befoul, bespatter, debase, deprave, soil, stain, taint, besmear, contaminate, defile, pollute, spoil, sully, vitiate. Besmirch, corrupt. Prepositions: cleanse of or from physical or moral defilement, cleanse with an instrument, by an agent. The room was cleansed by the attendants with soap and water. Start of a new word: clear. Clear. Synonyms: apparent, intelligible, pellucid, transparent, diaphanous, limpid, perspicuous, unadorned, distinct, lucid, plain, unambiguous, evident, manifest, straightforward, unequivocal, explicit, obvious, translucent, unmistakable. Clear, clarus, bright, brilliant, primarily refers to that which shines, and impresses the mind through the eye with a sense of luster or splendor. A substance is said to be clear that offers no impediment to vision, is not dim, dark, or obscure. Transparent refers to the medium through which a substance is seen, clear to the substance itself, without reference to anything to be seen through it. We speak of a stream as clear when we think of the water itself. We speak of it as transparent with reference to the ease with which we see the pebbles at the bottom. Clear is also said of that which comes to the senses without dimness, dullness, obstruction, or obscurity, so that there is no uncertainty as to its exact form, character, or meaning, with something of the brightness or brilliancy implied in the primary meaning of the word clear, as, the outlines of the ship were clear against the sky, a clear view, a clear note, clear as a bell, a clear, frosty air, a clear sky, a clear statement. Hence, the word is used for that which is free from any kind of obstruction, as, a clear field. Lucid and pellucid refer to a shining clearness, as of crystal. A transparent body allows the forms and colors of objects beyond to be seen through it. A translucent body allows light to pass through, but may not permit forms and colors to be distinguished. Plate glass is transparent, ground glass is translucent. Limpid refers to a liquid clearness, or that which suggests it, as, limpid streams. That which is distinct is well defined, especially in outline, each part or object standing or seeming apart from any other, not confused, indefinite, or blurred. Distinct enunciation enables the hearer to catch every word or vocal sound without perplexity or confusion. A distinct statement is free from indefiniteness or ambiguity. A distinct apprehension of a thought leaves the mind in no doubt or uncertainty regarding it. That is plain, in the sense here considered, which is, as it were, level to the thought, so that one goes straight on without difficulty or hindrance, as, plain language, a plain statement, a clear explanation. Perspicuous is often equivalent to plain, but plain never wholly loses the meaning of unadorned, so that we can say the style is perspicuous though highly ornate, when we could not call it at once ornate and plain. Compare evident. Antonyms: ambiguous, dim, foggy, mysterious, opaque, unintelligible, cloudy, dubious, indistinct, obscure, turbid, vague. Prepositions: clear to the mind, clear in argument, clear of or from annoyances. Start of a new word: clever. Clever. Synonyms: able, capable, happy, keen, sharp, adroit, dexterous, ingenious, knowing, skillful, apt, expert, intellectual, quick, smart, bright, gifted, intelligent, quick-witted, talented. Clever, as used in England, especially implies an aptitude for study or learning, and for excellent though not preeminent mental achievement. The early New England usage as implying simple and weak good nature has largely affected the use of the word throughout the United States, where it has never been much in favor. Smart, indicating dashing ability, is now coming to have a suggestion of unscrupulousness, similar to that of the word sharp, which makes its use a doubtful compliment. The discriminating use of such words as able, gifted, talented, etc., is greatly preferable to an excessive use of the word clever. Compare acumen, astute, power. Antonyms: awkward, clumsy, foolish, ignorant, slow, thick-headed, bungling, dull, idiotic, senseless, stupid, witless. Start of a new word: collision. Collision. Synonyms: clash, concussion, contact, impact, opposition, clashing, conflict, encounter, meeting, shock. Collision, the act or fact of striking violently together, is the result of motion or action, and is sudden and momentary. Contact may be a condition of rest, and be continuous and permanent. Collision is sudden and violent contact. Concussion is often by transmitted force rather than by direct impact. Two railway trains come into collision, an explosion of dynamite shatters neighboring windows by concussion. Impact is the blow given by the striking body, as the impact of the cannon shot upon the target. An encounter is always violent, and generally hostile. Meeting is neutral, and may be of the dearest friends or of the bitterest foes, of objects, of persons, or of opinions, of two or of a multitude. Shock is the result of collision. In the figurative use, we speak of clashing of views, collision of persons. Opposition is used chiefly of persons, more rarely of opinions or interests. Conflict is used indifferently of all. Antonyms: agreement, coincidence, concord, conformity, unison, amity, concert, concurrence, harmony, unity. Prepositions: collision of one object with another, of or between opposing objects. Start of a new word: comfortable. Comfortable. Synonyms: agreeable, cheery, genial, snug, at ease, commodious, pleasant, well off, at rest, contented, satisfactory, well provided, cheerful, convenient, satisfied, well-to-do. A person is comfortable in mind when contented and measurably satisfied. A little additional brightness makes him cheerful. He is comfortable in body when free from pain, quiet, at ease, at rest. He is comfortable in circumstances, or in comfortable circumstances, when things about him are generally agreeable and satisfactory, usually with the suggestion of sufficient means to secure that result. Antonyms: cheerless, discontented, distressed, forlorn, uncomfortable, disagreeable, dissatisfied, dreary, miserable, wretched. Start of a new word: commit. Commit. Synonyms: assign, confide, consign, entrust, relegate, trust. Commit, in the sense here considered, is to give in charge, put into care or keeping. To confide or entrust is to commit especially to one's fidelity, confide being used chiefly of mental or spiritual, entrust also of material things. We assign a duty, confide a secret, entrust a treasure. We commit thoughts to writing, commit a paper to the flames, a body to the earth, a prisoner is committed to jail. Consign is a formal word in mercantile use, as, to consign goods to an agent. Religiously, we consign the body to the grave, commit the soul to God. Compare do. Prepositions: commit to a friend for safekeeping, in law, commit to prison, for trial, without bail, in default of bail, on suspicion. Start of a new word: company. Company. Synonyms: assemblage, concourse, convocation, host, assembly, conference, crowd, meeting, collection, congregation. Gathering, multitude, conclave, convention, group, throng. Company, from the Latin cum, with, and panis, bread, denotes primarily the association of those who eat at a common table, or the persons so associated, table companions, messmates, friends, and hence is widely extended to include any association of those united permanently or temporarily, for business, pleasure, festivity, travel, etc., or by sorrow, misfortune, or wrong. Company may denote an indefinite number, ordinarily more than two, but less than a multitude, in the military sense. A Company is a limited and definite number of men. Company implies more unity of feeling and purpose than crowd, and is a less formal and more familiar word than assemblage or assembly. An assemblage may be of persons or of objects. An assembly is always of persons. An assemblage is promiscuous and unorganized. An assembly is organized and united in some common purpose. A conclave is a secret assembly. A convocation is an assembly called by authority for a special purpose. The term convention suggests less dependence upon any superior authority or summons. A group is small in number and distinct in outline, clearly marked off from all else in space or time. Collection, crowd, gathering, group, and multitude have the unorganized and promiscuous character of the assemblage. The other terms come under the general idea of assembly. Congregation is now almost exclusively religious. Meeting is often so used, but is less restricted, as we may speak of a meeting of armed men. Gathering refers to a coming together, commonly of numbers, from far and near, as the gathering of the Scottish clans. Antonyms: dispersion, loneliness, privacy, retirement, seclusion, solitude. Start of a new word: compel. Compel. Synonyms: coerce, drive, make, oblige. Constrain, force, necessitate. To compel one to an act is to secure its performance by the use of irresistible physical or moral force. Force implies primarily an actual physical process, absolutely subduing all resistance. Coerce implies the actual or potential use of so much force as may be necessary to secure the surrender of the will. The American secessionists contended that the federal government had no right to coerce a state. Constrain implies the yielding of judgment and will, and in some cases of inclination or affection, to an overmastering power, as, the love of Christ constraineth us, 2 Cor v. 14. Compare drive, influence. Antonyms: see synonyms for hinder. Prepositions: the soldiers were compelled to desertion, preferably with the infinitive, compelled to desert. Start of a new word: complain. Complain. Synonyms: croak, growl, grunt, remonstrate, find fault, grumble, murmur, repine. To complain is to give utterance to dissatisfaction or objection, express a sense of wrong or ill treatment. One complains of a real or assumed grievance. He may murmur through mere peevishness or ill temper. He repines, with vain distress, at the irrevocable or the inevitable. Complaining is by speech or writing. Murmuring is commonly said of half-repressed utterance, repining of the mental act alone. One may complain of an offense to the offender or to others. He remonstrates with the offender only. Complain has a formal and legal meaning, which the other words have not, signifying to make a formal accusation, present a specific charge. The same is true of the noun complaint. Antonyms: applaud, approve, commend, eulogize, laud, praise. Prepositions: complain of a thing to a person, of one person to another, of or against a person for an act, to an officer, before the court, about a thing. Start of a new word: complex. Complex. Synonyms: abstruse, confused, intricate, mixed, complicated, conglomerate, involved, multiform, composite, entangled, manifold, obscure, compound, heterogeneous, mingled, tangled. That is complex which is made up of several connected parts. That is compound in which the parts are not merely connected, but fused, or otherwise combined into a single substance. In a composite object the different parts have less of unity than in that which is complex or compound, but maintain their distinct individuality. In a heterogeneous body unlike parts or particles are intermingled, often without apparent order or plan. Conglomerate, literally, globed together, is said of a confused mingling of masses or lumps of various substances. The New England pudding stone is a conglomerate rock. In a complex object the arrangement and relation of parts may be perfectly clear. In a complicated mechanism the parts are so numerous, or so combined, that the mind cannot readily grasp their mutual relations. In an intricate arrangement the parts are so intertwined that it is difficult to follow their windings. things are involved which are rolled together so as not to be easily separated either in thought or in fact. Things which are tangled or entangled mutually hold and draw upon each other. The conception of a material object is usually complex, involving form, color, size, and other elements. A clock is a complicated mechanism, the Gordian knot was intricate, the twining serpents of the Laocoon are involved. We speak of an abstruse statement, a complex conception, a confused heap, a heterogeneous mass, a tangled skein, an intricate problem, of composite architecture, an involved sentence, of the complicated or intricate accounts of a great business, the entangled accounts of an incompetent or dishonest bookkeeper. Antonyms: clear, homogeneous, plain, uncombined, uniform, direct, obvious, simple, uncompounded, unraveled. Start of a new word: condemn. Condemn. Synonyms: blame, convict, doom, reprove, censure, denounce, reprobate, sentence. To condemn is to pass judicial sentence or render judgment or decision against. We may censure silently, we condemn ordinarily by open and formal utterance. Condemn is more final than blame or censure. A condemned criminal has had his trial. A condemned building cannot stand, a condemned ship cannot sail. A person is convicted when his guilt is made clearly manifest to others. In somewhat archaic use, a person is said to be convicted when guilt is brought clearly home to his own conscience, convict in this sense being allied with convince, which see under persuade. In legal usage one is said to be convicted only by the verdict of a jury. In stating the penalty of an offense, the legal word sentence is now more common than condemn, as, he was sentenced to imprisonment, but it is good usage to say, he was condemned to imprisonment. To denounce is to make public or official declaration against, especially in a violent and threatening manner. From the pulpits in the northern states Burr was denounced as an assassin. Coffin Building the Nation Chapter 10 page 137. H. 83. To doom is to condemn solemnly and consign to evil or destruction or to predetermine to an evil destiny. An inferior race in presence of a superior is doomed to subjugation or extinction. Compare ARRAIGN, reprove. Antonyms: absolve, applaud, exonerate, pardon, acquit, approve, justify, praise. Prepositions: the bandit was condemned to death for his crime. Start of a new word: confess. Confess. Synonyms: accept, allow, concede, grant, acknowledge, avow, disclose, own, admit, certify, endorse, recognize. We accept another statement, admit any point made against us, acknowledge what we have said or done, good or bad, avow our individual beliefs or feelings, certify to facts within our knowledge, confess our own faults, endorse a friend's note or statement, grant a request, own our faults or obligations, recognize lawful authority, concede a claim. Confess has a high and sacred use in the religious sense, as, to confess Christ before men. It may have also a playful sense, often with to, as, one confesses to a weakness for confectionery. The chief present use of the word, however, is in the sense of making known to others one's own wrongdoing. In this sense confess is stronger than acknowledge or admit, and more specific than own. A person admits a mistake, acknowledges a fault, confesses sin or crime. Compare apology, AVOW. Antonyms: cloak, deny, disown, hide, screen, conceal, disavow, dissemble, mask, secrete, cover, disguise, dissimulate, repudiate, veil. Start of a new word: confirm. Confirm. Synonyms: assure, fix, sanction, substantiate, corroborate, prove, settle, sustain, establish, ratify, strengthen, uphold. Confirm, con, together, and firmus, firm, is to add firmness or give stability to. Both confirm and corroborate presuppose something already existing to which the confirmation or corroboration is added. Testimony is corroborated by concurrent testimony or by circumstances, confirmed by established facts. That which is thoroughly proved is said to be established, so is that which is official and has adequate power behind it, as, the established government, the established church. The continents are fixed. A treaty is ratified, an appointment confirmed. An act is sanctioned by any person or authority that passes upon it approvingly. A statement is substantiated, a report confirmed, a controversy settled, the decision of a lower court sustained by a higher. Just government should be upheld. The beneficent results of Christianity confirm our faith in it as a divine revelation. Antonyms: abrogate, cancel, overthrow, shatter, upset, annul, destroy, shake, unsettle, weaken. Prepositions: confirm a statement by testimony, confirm a person in a belief. Start of a new word: congratulate. Congratulate. Synonym: felicitate. To felicitate is to pronounce one happy or wish one joy. To congratulate is to express hearty sympathy in his joys or hopes. Felicitate is cold and formal. We say one felicitates himself, though to congratulate oneself, which is less natural, is becoming prevalent. Antonyms: condole with, console. Prepositions: congratulate one on or upon his success. Start of a new word: conquer. Conquer. Synonyms: beat, humble, overthrow, subject, checkmate, master, prevail over, subjugate, crush, overcome, put down, surmount, defeat, overmaster, reduce, vanquish, discomfit, overmatch, rout, win, down, overpower, subdue. Worst. To defeat an enemy is to gain an advantage for the time, to vanquish is to win a signal victory, to conquer is to overcome so effectually that the victory is regarded as final. Conquer, in many cases, carries the idea of possession, as, to conquer respect, affection, peace, etc. A country is conquered when its armies are defeated and its territory is occupied by the enemy. It may be subjected to indemnity or to various disabilities. It is subjugated when it is held helplessly and continuously under military control. It is subdued when all resistance has died out. An army is defeated when forcibly driven back. It is routed when it is converted into a mob of fugitives. Compare beat. Antonyms: capitulate, fail, fly, lose, retire, submit, surrender, cede, fall, forfeit, resign, retreat, succumb, yield. Start of a new word: conscious. Conscious. Synonyms: advised, assured, certain, cognizant, sensible, apprised, aware, certified, informed, sure. One is aware of that which exists without him. He is conscious of the inner workings of his own mind. Sensible may be used in the exact sense of conscious, or it may partake of both the senses mentioned above. One may be sensible of his own or another's error. He is conscious only of his own. A person may feel assured or sure of something false or non-existent. What he is aware of, still more what he is conscious of, must be fact. Sensible has often a reference to the emotions where conscious might apply only to the intellect. To say a culprit is sensible of his degradation is more forcible than to say he is conscious of it. Antonyms: cold, dead, deaf, ignorant, insensible, unaware, unconscious. Preposition: on the stormy sea, man is conscious of the limitation of human power. Start of a new word: consequence. Consequence. Synonyms: consequent, end, issue, outgrowth, sequel, effect, event, outcome, result, upshot. Effect is the strongest of these words. It is that which is directly produced by the action of an efficient cause. We say, every effect must have an adequate cause. Compare cause. In regard to human actions, effect commonly relates to intention, as, the shot took effect, i.e., the effect intended. A consequence is that which follows an act naturally, but less directly than the effect. The motion of the piston is the effect, and the agitation of the water under the paddle wheels a consequence of the expansion of steam in the cylinder. The result is, literally, the rebound of an act, depending on many elements. The issue is that which flows forth directly. We say the issue of a battle, the result of a campaign. A consequent commonly is that which follows. Simply in order of time, or by logical inference. The end is the actual outcome without determination of its relation to what has gone before. It is ordinarily viewed as either the necessary, natural, or logical outcome, any effect, consequence, or result being termed an end, as, the end of such a course must be ruin. The event, out, and venio, come, is primarily exactly the same in meaning as outcome, but in use it is more nearly equivalent to upshot, signifying the sum and substance of all effects, consequences, and results of a course of action. Compare accident, cause, circumstance, event. Start of a new word, console. Console. Synonyms: comfort, condole with, encourage, sympathize with. One condoles with another by the expression of kindly sympathy in his trouble. He consoles him by considerations adapted to soothe and sustain the spirit, as by the assurances and promises of the gospel. He encourages him by the hope of some relief or deliverance. He comforts him by whatever act or word tends to bring mind or body to a state of rest and cheer. We sympathize with others, not only in sorrow, but in joy. Compare alleviate, pity. Antonyms: annoy, distress, disturb, grieve, hurt, sadden, trouble, wound. Start of a new word, contagion. Contagion. Synonym: infection. Infection is frequently confused with contagion, even by medical men. The best usage now limits contagion to diseases that are transmitted by contact with the diseased person, either directly by touch or indirectly by use of the same articles, by breath, effluvia, etc. Infection is applied to diseases produced by no known or definable influence of one person upon another, but where common climatic, malarious, or other widespread conditions are believed to be chiefly instrumental. Start of a new word, continual. Continual. Synonyms: ceaseless, incessant, regular, uninterrupted, constant, invariable, unbroken, unremitting, continuous, perpetual, unceasing, unvarying. Continuous describes that which is absolutely without pause or break. Continual, that which often intermits, but as regularly begins again. A continuous beach is exposed to the continual beating of the waves. A similar distinction is made between incessant and ceaseless. The incessant discharge of firearms makes the ceaseless roar of battle. Constant is sometimes used in the sense of continual, but its chief uses are mental and moral. Start of a new word, contract. Contract. Synonyms: agreement, cartel, engagement, pledge, arrangement, compact, obligation, promise, bargain, covenant, pact, stipulation. All these words involve at least two parties, though an engagement or promise may be the act of but one. A contract is a formal agreement between two or more parties for the doing or leaving undone some specified act or acts, and is ordinarily in writing. Mutual promises may have the force of a contract. A consideration, or compensation, is essential to convert an agreement into a contract. A contract may be oral or written. A covenant in law is a written contract under seal. Covenant is frequent in religious usage, as contract is in law and business. Compact is essentially the same as contract, but is applied to international agreements, treaties, etc. A bargain is a mutual agreement for an exchange of values, without the formality of a contract. A stipulation is a single item in an agreement or contract. A cartel is a military agreement for the exchange of prisoners or the like. Start of a new word, contrast. Contrast. Synonyms: compare, differentiate, discriminate, oppose. To compare, together, and par, equal, is to place together in order to show likeness or unlikeness. To contrast, contra, against, and sto, stand, is to set in opposition in order to show unlikeness. We contrast objects that have been already compared. We must compare them, at least momentarily, even to know that they are different. We contrast them when we observe their unlikeness in a general way. We differentiate them when we note the difference exactly and point by point. We distinguish objects when we note a difference that may fall short of contrast. We discriminate them when we classify or place them according to their differences. Preposition, we contrast one object with another. Start of a new word, conversation. Conversation. Synonyms, chat, communion, converse, intercourse, colloquy, confabulation, dialogue, parley, communication, conference, discourse, talk. Conversation, Latin con, with, is, etymologically, an interchange of ideas with some other person or persons. Talk may be wholly one-sided. Many brilliant talkers have been incapable of conversation. There may be intercourse without conversation, as by looks, signs, etc. Communion is of hearts, with or without words. Communication is often by writing, and may be uninvited and unreciprocated. Talk may denote the mere utterance of words with little thought. Thus, we say idle talk, empty talk, rather than idle or empty conversation. Discourse is now applied chiefly to public addresses. A conference is more formal than a conversation. Dialogue denotes ordinarily an artificial or imaginary conversation, generally of two persons, but sometimes of more. A colloquy is indefinite as to number, and generally somewhat informal. Compare behavior. Prepositions, conversation with friends, between or among the guests, about a matter. Start of a new word, convert. Convert. Synonyms, disciple, neophyte, proselyte. The name disciple is given to the follower of a certain faith, without reference to any previous belief or allegiance. A convert is a person who has come to one faith from a different belief or from unbelief. A proselyte is one who has been led to accept a religious system, whether with or without true faith. A convert is always understood to be a believer. A neophyte is a new convert, not yet fully indoctrinated, or not admitted to full privileges. The antonyms apostate, pervert, and renegade are condemnatory names applied to the convert by those whose faith he forsakes. Start of a new word, convey. Convey. Synonyms, carry, give, remove, shift, transmit, change, move, sell, transfer, transport. Convey, transmit, and transport all imply delivery at a destination, as, I will convey the information to your friend. Air conveys sound to a listener. Carry does not necessarily imply delivery, and often does not admit of it. A man carries an appearance, conveys an impression, the appearance remaining his own, the impression being given to another. I will transmit the letter, transport the goods. A horse carries his mane and tail, but does not convey them. Transfer may or may not imply delivery to another person, as items may be transferred from one account to another or a word transferred to the following line. In law, real estate, which cannot be moved, is conveyed by simply transferring title and possession. Transport usually refers to material, transfer, transmit, and convey may refer to immaterial objects. We transfer possession, transmit intelligence, convey ideas, but do not transport them. In the case of convey, the figurative sense now predominates. Compare carry. Antonyms, cling to, hold, keep, possess, preserve, retain. Prepositions, convey to a friend, a purchaser, etc., convey from the house to the station, convey by express, by hand, etc. Start of a new word, convoke. Convoke. Synonyms, assemble, call together, convene, muster, call, collect, gather, summon. A convention is called by some officer or officers, as by its president, its executive committee, or some eminent leaders. The delegates are assembled or convened in a certain place, at a certain hour. Convoke implies an organized body and a superior authority. Assemble and convene express more independent action. Parliament is convoked, Congress assembles. Troops are mustered, witnesses and jurymen are summoned. Antonyms, adjourn, disband, dismiss, dissolve, scatter, break up, discharge, disperse, prorogue, separate. Start of a new word, criminal. Criminal. Synonyms, abominable, flagitious, immoral, sinful, vile, culpable, guilty, iniquitous, unlawful, wicked, felonious, illegal, nefarious, vicious, wrong. Every criminal act is illegal or unlawful, but illegal or unlawful acts may not be criminal. Offenses against public law are criminal, offenses against private rights are merely illegal or unlawful. As a general rule, all acts punishable by fine or imprisonment or both, are criminal in view of the law. It is illegal for a man to trespass on another's land, but it is not criminal. The trespasser is liable to a civil suit for damages, but not to indictment, fine, or imprisonment. A felonious act is a criminal act of an aggravated kind, which is punishable by imprisonment in the penitentiary or by death. A flagitious crime is one that brings public odium. Vicious refers to the indulgence of evil appetites, habits, or passions. Vicious acts are not necessarily criminal, or even illegal. We speak of a vicious horse. That which is iniquitous, i.e., contrary to equity, may sometimes be done under the forms of law. Ingratitude is sinful, hypocrisy is wicked, but neither is punishable by human law, hence, neither is criminal or illegal. Compare SIN. Antonyms: innocent, lawful, meritorious, right, just, legal, moral, virtuous. Start of a new word: daily. Daily. Synonym: diurnal. Daily is the Saxon and popular, diurnal the Latin and scientific term. In strict usage, daily is the antonym of nightly as diurnal is of nocturnal. Daily is not, however, held strictly to this use. A physician makes daily visits if he calls at some time within each period of 24 hours. Diurnal is more exact in all its uses. A diurnal flower opens or blooms only in daylight, a diurnal bird or animal flies or ranges only by day, in contradistinction to nocturnal flowers, birds, etc. A diurnal motion exactly fills an astronomical day or the time of one rotation of a planet on its axis, while a daily motion is much less definite. Antonyms: nightly, nocturnal. Start of a new word: danger. Danger. Synonyms: hazard, insecurity, jeopardy, peril, risk. Danger is exposure to possible evil, which may be either near and probable or remote and doubtful. Peril is exposure to imminent and sharply threatening evil, especially to such as results from violence. An invalid may be in danger of consumption, a disarmed soldier is in peril of death. Jeopardy is nearly the same as peril, but involves, like risk, more of the element of chance or uncertainty. A man tried upon a capital charge is said to be put in jeopardy of life. Insecurity is a feeble word, but exceedingly broad, applying to the placing of a dish, or the possibilities of a life, a fortune, or a government. Compare hazard. Antonyms: defense, immunity, protection, safeguard, safety, security, shelter. Start of a new word: dark. Dark. Synonyms: black, dusky, mysterious, sable, somber, dim, gloomy, obscure, shadowy, swart, dismal, murky, opaque, shady, swarthy. Strictly, that which is black is absolutely destitute of color, that which is dark is absolutely destitute of light. In common speech, however, a coat is black, though not optically colorless, the night is dark, though the stars shine. That is obscure, shadowy, or shady from which the light is more or less cut off. Dusky is applied to objects which appear as if viewed in fading light. The word is often used, as are swart and swarthy, of the human skin when quite dark, or even verging toward black. Dim refers to imperfection of outline, from distance, darkness, mist, etc., or from some defect of vision. Opaque objects, as smoked glass, are impervious to light. Murky is said of that which is at once dark, obscure, and gloomy, as a murky den, a murky sky. Figuratively, dark is emblematic of sadness, agreeing with somber, dismal, gloomy, also of moral evil, as a dark deed. Of intellectual matters, dark is now rarely used in the old sense of a dark saying, etc. See mysterious, obscure. Antonyms: bright, crystalline, glowing, lucid, shining, brilliant, dazzling, illumined, luminous, transparent, clear, gleaming, light, radiant, white. Compare synonyms for light. Start of a new word, decay. Decay. Synonyms: corrupt, decompose, molder, putrefy, rot, spoil. Rot is a strong word, ordinarily esteemed coarse, but on occasion capable of approved emphatic use, as, the name of the wicked shall rot, provx. 7, decay and decompose are now common euphemisms. A substance is decomposed when resolved into its original elements by any process. It is decayed when resolved into its original elements by natural processes. It decays gradually, but may be instantly decomposed, as water into oxygen and hydrogen. To say that a thing is decayed may denote only a partial result, but to say it is decomposed ordinarily implies that the change is complete or nearly so. Putrefy and the adjectives putrid and putrescent, and the nouns putridity and putrescence, are used almost exclusively of animal matter in a state of decomposition, the more general word decay being used of either animal or vegetable substances. Start of a new word, deception. Deception. Synonyms: craft, dissimulation, finesse, lie, cunning, double-dealing, fraud, lying, deceit, duplicity, guile, prevarication, deceitfulness, fabrication, hypocrisy, trickery, delusion, falsehood, imposition, untruth. Deceit is the habit, deception the act. Guile applies to the disposition out of which deceit and deception grow, and also to their actual practice. A lie, lying, or falsehood, is the uttering of what one knows to be false with intent to deceive. The novel or drama is not a lie, because not meant to deceive. The ancient teaching that the earth was flat was not a lie, because not then known to be false. Untruth is more than lack of accuracy, implying always lack of veracity, but it is a somewhat milder and more dignified word than lie. Falsehood and lying are an utterance. Deceit and deception may be merely an act or implication. Deception may be innocent, and even unintentional, as in the case of an optical illusion. Deceit always involves injurious intent. Craft and cunning have not necessarily any moral quality. They are common traits of animals, but stand rather low in the human scale. Duplicity is the habitual speaking or acting with intent to appear to mean what one does not. Dissimulation is rather a concealing of what is than a pretense of what is not. Finesse is simply an adroit and delicate management of a matter for one's own side, not necessarily involving deceit. Compare artifice, fiction, fraud, hypocrisy. Antonyms: candor, frankness, honesty, simplicity, truth, fair dealing, guilelessness, openness, sincerity, veracity. Start of a new word, defense. Defense. Synonyms: apology, guard, rampart, shelter, bulwark, justification, resistance, shield, fortress, protection, safeguard. Vindication. The weak may speak or act in defense of the strong. None but the powerful can assure others of protection. A defense is ordinarily against actual attack. Protection is against possible as well as actual dangers. We speak of defense against an assault, protection from the cold. Vindication is a triumphant defense of character and conduct against charges of error or wrong. Compare apology. Antonyms: abandonment, betrayal, capitulation, desertion, flight, surrender. Prepositions: defense against assault or assailants. In law, defense to an action, from the testimony. Start of a new word, defile. Defile. Synonyms: befoul, corrupt, pollute, spoil, sully, tarnish, contaminate, infect, soil, stain, taint, vitiate. The hand may be defiled by a touch of pitch. Swine that have been wallowing in the mud are befouled. Contaminate and infect refer to something evil that deeply pervades and permeates, as the human body or mind. Pollute is used chiefly of liquids, as water polluted with sewage. Tainted meat is repulsive. Infected meat contains germs of disease. A soiled garment may be cleansed by washing. A spoiled garment is beyond cleansing or repair. Bright metal is tarnished by exposure, a fair sheet is sullied by a dirty hand. In figurative use, defile may be used merely in the ceremonial sense, they themselves went not into the judgment hall, lest they should be defiled. John 18:28. Contaminate refers to deep spiritual injury. Pollute has also a reference to sacrilege, as, to pollute a sanctuary, an altar, or an ordinance. The innocent are often contaminated by association with the wicked, the vicious are more and more corrupted by their own excesses. We speak of a vitiated taste or style, fraud vitiates a title or a contract. Antonyms: clean, cleanse, disinfect, hallow, purify, sanctify, wash. Prepositions: the temple was defiled with blood, defiled by sacrilegious deeds. Start of a new word, definition. Definition. Synonyms: comment, description, exposition, rendering, commentary, explanation, interpretation, translation. A definition is exact, an explanation general, a definition is formal, a description pictorial. A definition must include all that belongs to the object defined, and exclude all that does not. A description may include only some general features. An explanation may simply throw light upon some point of special difficulty. An exposition undertakes to state more fully what is compactly given or only implied in the text, as an exposition of Scripture. Interpretation is ordinarily from one language into another, or from the language of one period into that of another. It may also be a statement giving the doubtful or hidden meaning of that which is recondite or perplexing, as the interpretation of a dream, a riddle, or of some difficult passage. Definition, explanation, exposition, and interpretation are ordinarily blended in a commentary, which may also include description. A comment is upon a single passage. A commentary may be the same, but is usually understood to be a volume of comments. Start of a new word, delegate. Delegate. Synonyms: deputy, legate, proxy, representative, substitute. These words agree in designating one who acts in the place of some other or others. The legate is an ecclesiastical officer representing the Pope. In strict usage, the deputy or delegate is more limited in functions and more closely bound by instructions than a representative. A single officer may have a deputy, many persons combine to choose a delegate or representative. In the United States, informal assemblies send delegates to nominating conventions with no legislative authority. Representatives are legally elected to Congress and the various legislatures, with lawmaking power. Start of a new word, deliberate. Deliberate. Synonyms: confer, consult, meditate, reflect, consider, debate, ponder, weigh. An individual considers, meditates, ponders, reflects, by himself, he weighs a matter in his own mind, and is sometimes said even to debate with himself. Consult and confer always imply two or more persons, as does debate, unless expressly limited as above. Confer suggests the interchange of counsel, advice, or information. Consult indicates almost exclusively the receiving of it. A man confers with his associates about a new investment, he consults his physician about his health, he may confer with him on matters of general interest. He consults a dictionary, but does not confer with it. Deliberate, which can be applied to a single individual, is also the word for a great number, while consult is ordinarily limited to a few. A committee consults, an assembly deliberates. Deliberating always carries the idea of slowness. Consulting is compatible with haste. We can speak of a hasty consultation, not of a hasty deliberation. Debate implies opposing views. Deliberate, simply a gathering and balancing of all facts and reasons. We consider or deliberate with a view to action, while meditation may be quite purposeless. Prepositions: we deliberate on or upon, also about or concerning a matter. The first two are preferable. Start of a new word, delicious. Delicious. Synonyms: dainty, delightful, exquisite, luscious, savory. That is delicious which affords a gratification at once vivid and delicate to the senses, especially to those of taste and smell, as delicious fruit, a delicious odor. Luscious has a kindred but more fulsome meaning, inclining toward a cloying excess of sweetness or richness. Savory is applied chiefly to cooked food made palatable by spices and condiments. Delightful may be applied to the higher gratifications of sense, as delightful music, but is chiefly used for that which is mental and spiritual. Delicious has a limited use in this way, as a delicious bit of poetry. The word is sometimes used ironically for some pleasing absurdity, as this is delicious. Compare delightful. Antonyms: acrid, loathsome, nauseous, repulsive, unpalatable, unsavory. Bitter. Start of a new word: delightful. Delightful. Synonyms: acceptable, delicious, pleasant, refreshing, agreeable, grateful, pleasing, satisfying, congenial, gratifying, pleasurable, welcome. Agreeable refers to whatever gives a mild degree of pleasure, as an agreeable perfume. Acceptable indicates a thing to be worthy of acceptance, as an acceptable offering. Grateful is stronger than agreeable or gratifying, indicating whatever awakens a feeling akin to gratitude. A pleasant face and pleasing manners arouse pleasurable sensations, and make the possessor an agreeable companion. If possessed of intelligence, vivacity, and goodness, such a person's society will be delightful. Criminals may find each other's company congenial, but scarcely delightful. Satisfying denotes anything that is received with calm acquiescence, a substantial food, or established truth. That is welcome which is received with joyful heartiness, as welcome tidings. Compare beautiful, charming, delicious. Antonyms: depressing, hateful, miserable, painful, woeful, disappointing, horrible, mournful, saddening, wretched. Distressing, melancholy. Start of a new word: delusion. Delusion. Synonyms: error, fallacy, hallucination, illusion, phantasm. A delusion is a mistaken conviction, an illusion a mistaken perception or inference. An illusion may be wholly of the senses. A delusion always involves some mental error. In an optical illusion, the observer sees either what does not exist, or what exists otherwise than as he sees it, as when in a mirage distant springs and trees appear close at hand. We speak of the illusions of fancy or of hope, but of the delusions of the insane. A hallucination is a false image or belief which has nothing, outside of the disordered mind, to suggest it, as the hallucinations of delirium tremens. Compare deception, insanity. Antonyms: actuality, certainty, fact, reality, truth, verity. Start of a new word: demolish. Demolish. Synonyms: destroy, overthrow, overturn, raze, ruin. A building, monument, or other structure is demolished when reduced to a shapeless mass. It is razed when leveled with the ground. It is destroyed when its structural unity is gone, whether or not its component parts remain. An edifice is destroyed by fire or earthquake. It is demolished by bombardment. It is ruined when, by violence or neglect, it has become unfit for human habitation. Compare abolish, break. Antonyms: build, construct, create, make, repair, restore. Start of a new word: demonstration. Demonstration. Synonyms: certainty, consequence, evidence, inference, conclusion, deduction, induction, proof. Demonstration, in the strict and proper sense, is the highest form of proof, and gives the most absolute certainty, but cannot be applied outside of pure mathematics or other strictly deductive reasoning. There can be proof and certainty, however, in matters that do not admit of demonstration. A conclusion is the absolute and necessary result of the admission of certain premises. An inference is a probable conclusion toward which known facts, statements, or admissions point, but which they do not absolutely establish. Sound premises, together with their necessary conclusion, constitute a demonstration. Evidence is that which tends to show a thing to be true, in the widest sense, as including self-evidence or consciousness. It is the basis of all knowledge. Proof in the strict sense is complete, irresistible evidence, as, there was much evidence against the accused, but not amounting to proof of guilt. Moral certainty is a conviction resting on such evidence as puts a matter beyond reasonable doubt, while not so irresistible as demonstration. Compare hypothesis, induction. Start of a new word, design. Design. Synonyms: aim, final cause, object, proposal, device, intent, plan, purpose, end, intention, project, scheme. Design refers to the adaptation of means to an end, the correspondence and coordination of parts, or of separate acts, to produce a result. Intent and purpose overleap all particulars, and fasten on the end itself. Intention is simply the more familiar form of the legal and philosophical intent. Plan relates to details of form, structure, and action, in themselves. Design considers these same details all as a means to an end. The plan of a campaign may be for a series of sharp attacks, with the design of thus surprising and overpowering the enemy. A man comes to a fixed intention to kill his enemy. He forms a plan to entrap him into his power, with the design of then compassing his death. As the law cannot read the heart, it can only infer the intent from the evidences of design. Intent denotes a straining, stretching forth toward an object, purpose simply the placing it before oneself. Hence, we speak of the purpose rather than the intent or intention of God. We hold that the marks of design in nature prove it the work of a great designer. Intention contemplates the possibility of failure, purpose looks to assured success. Intent or intention refers especially to the state of mind of the actor, purpose to the result of the action. Compare aim, cause, idea, model. Prepositions: the design of defrauding, the design of a building, a design for a statue. Start of a new word, desire. Desire. Synonyms: appetency, concupiscence, hankering, proclivity, appetite, coveting, inclination, propensity, aspiration, craving, longing, wish. Inclination is the mildest of these terms. It is a quiet, or even a vague or unconscious, tendency. Even when we speak of a strong or decided inclination, we do not express the intensity of desire. Desire has a wide range, from the highest objects to the lowest. Desire is for an object near at hand, or near in thought, and viewed as attainable. A wish may be for what is remote or uncertain, or even for what is recognized as impossible. Craving is stronger than hankering. Hankering may be the result of a fitful and capricious appetite. Craving may be the imperious and reasonable demand of the whole nature. Longing is a reaching out with deep and persistent demand for that which is viewed as now distant but at some time attainable, as, the captive's longing for release. Coveting ordinarily denotes wrong desire for that which is another's. Compare appetite. Antonyms: see synonyms for antipathy. Prepositions: the desire of fame, a desire for excellence. Start of a new word, despair. Despair. Synonyms: desperation, despondency, discouragement, hopelessness. Discouragement is the result of so much repulse or failure as wears out courage. Discouragements too frequent and long continued may produce a settled hopelessness. Hopelessness is negative, and may result from simple apathy. Despondency and despair are more emphatic and decided. Despondency is an incapacity for the present exercise of hope. Despair is the utter abandonment of hope. Despondency relaxes energy and effort and is always attended with sadness or distress. Despair may produce a stony calmness, or it may lead to desperation. Desperation is energized despair, vigorous in action, reckless of consequences. Antonyms: anticipation, confidence, encouragement, expectation, hopefulness, assurance, courage, expectancy, hope, trust. Cheer, elation. Start of a new word, dexterity. Dexterity. Synonyms: adroitness, aptitude, cleverness, expertness, readiness, skill. Adroitness, to, adroit, right, and dexterity, dexter, right, right hand, might each be rendered right-handedness, but adroitness carries more of the idea of eluding, parrying, or checking some hostile movement, or taking advantage of another in controversy. Dexterity conveys the idea of doing, accomplishing something readily and well, without reference to any action of others. We speak of adroitness in fencing, boxing, or debate, of dexterity in horsemanship, in the use of tools, weapons, etc. Aptitude, aptus, fit, fitted, is a natural readiness, which by practice may be developed into dexterity. Skill is more exact to line, rule, and method than dexterity. Dexterity cannot be communicated, and, oftentimes cannot even be explained by its possessor. Skill to a very great extent can be imparted. Skilled workmen in various trades are numbered by thousands. Compare address, clever, power, skillful. Prepositions, dexterity of hand, of movement, of management, with the pen, in action, in manipulating men, at cards. Start of a new word, diction. Diction. Synonyms, expression, phrase, style, vocabulary, language, phraseology, verbiage, wording. An author's diction is strictly his choice and use of words, with no special reference to thought. Expression regards the words simply as the vehicle of the thought. Phrase and phraseology apply to words or combinations of words which are somewhat technical, as, in legal phraseology, in military phrase. Diction is general, wording is limited. We speak of the diction of an author or of a work, the wording of a proposition, of a resolution, etc. Verbiage never bears this sense, see circumlocution. The language of a writer or speaker may be the national speech he employs, as, the English or French language, or the word may denote his use of that language, as, the author's language is well, or ill, chosen. Style includes diction, expression, rhetorical figures such as metaphor and simile, the effect of an author's prevailing tone of thought, of his personal traits in short, all that makes up the clothing of thought in words. Thus, we speak of a figurative style, a frigid or an argumentative style, etc., or of the style of Macaulay, Prescott, or others. An author's vocabulary is the range of words which he brings into his use. Compare language. Start of a new word, die. Die. Synonyms, cease, decline, expire, perish, decease, depart, fade, wither. Die, to go out of life, become destitute of vital power and action, is figuratively applied to anything which has the appearance of life. Where the dying night lamp flickers. Tennyson, Locksley Hall Street 40. An echo, a strain of music, a tempest, a topic, an issue, dies. Expire, literally, to breathe out, is a softer word for die. It is used figuratively of things that cease to exist by reaching a natural limit, as, a lease expires, the time has expired. To perish, literally, in Latin, to go through, as in English we say, the fire goes out, is oftenest used of death by privation or exposure, as, I perish with hunger, Luke 15:17, sometimes, of death by violence. Knowledge and fame, art and empires, may be said to perish. The word denotes utter destruction and decay. Antonyms, be born, come into being, flourish, rise again, begin, come to life, grow, rise from the dead, be immortal, exist, live, survive. Prepositions, to die of fever, by violence, rarely, with the sword, famine, etc. Ezek 7:15, to die for one's country, to die at sea, in one's bed, in agony, die to the world. Start of a new word, difference. Difference. Synonyms, contrariety, discrimination, distinction, inequality, contrast, disparity, divergence, unlikeness, disagreement, dissimilarity, diversity, variation, discrepancy, dissimilitude, inconsistency, variety. Difference is the state or quality of being unlike or the amount of such unlikeness. A difference is in the things compared, a discrimination is in our judgment of them, a distinction is in our definition or description or mental image of them. Careful discrimination of real differences results in clear distinctions. Disparity is stronger than inequality, implying that one thing falls far below another, as, the disparity of our achievements when compared with our ideals. Dissimilarity is between things sharply contrasted. There may be a difference between those almost alike. There is a discrepancy in accounts that fail to balance. Variety involves more than two objects, so, in general, does diversity. Variation is a difference in the condition or action of the same object at different times. Disagreement is not merely the lack, but the opposite, of agreement. It is a mild word for opposition and conflict. Difference is sometimes used in the same sense. Antonyms: agreement, harmony, likeness, sameness, uniformity, consonance, identity, resemblance, similarity, unity. Prepositions: difference between the old and the new, differences among men, a difference in character, of action, of style, less frequently, a difference, controversy, with a person, a difference of one thing from, incorrectly to, another. Start of a new word, difficult. Difficult. Synonyms: arduous, hard, onerous, toilsome, exhausting, laborious, severe, trying. Arduous, arduous, steep, signifies primarily so steep and lofty as to be difficult of ascent, and hence applies to that which involves great and sustained exertion, and ordinarily for a lofty aim. Great learning can only be won by arduous toil. Hard applies to anything that resists our endeavors as a scarcely penetrable mass resists our physical force. Anything is hard that involves tax and strain, whether of the physical or mental powers. Difficult is not used of that which merely taxes physical force. A deadlift is called hard rather than difficult. Breaking stone on the road would be called hard rather than difficult work, that is difficult which involves skill, sagacity, or address, with or without a considerable expenditure of physical force. A geometrical problem may be difficult to solve, a tangled skein to unravel, a mountain difficult to ascend. Hard may be active or passive, a thing may be hard to do or hard to bear. Arduous is always active. That which is laborious or toilsome simply requires the steady application of labor or toil till accomplished. Toilsome is the stronger word. That which is onerous, onus, a burden, is mentally burdensome or oppressive. Responsibility may be onerous even when it involves no special exertion. Antonyms: easy, facile, light, pleasant, slight, trifling, trivial. Start of a new word, direction. Direction. Synonyms: aim, bearing, course, inclination, tendency, way. The direction of an object is the line of motion or of vision toward it, or the line in which the object is moving, considered from our own actual or mental standpoint. Way, literally the road or path, comes naturally to mean the direction of the road or path. Conversationally, way is almost a perfect synonym of direction, as, which way did he go? Or, in which direction? Bearing is the direction in which an object is seen with reference to another, and especially with reference to the points of the compass. Course is the direction of a moving object. Inclination, that toward which a stationary object leans. Tendency, the direction toward which anything stretches or reaches out. Tendency is stronger and more active than inclination. Compare aim, care, order, oversight. Start of a new word, discern. Discern. Synonyms: behold, discriminate, observe, recognize, descry, distinguish, perceive, see. What we discern we see apart from all other objects. What we discriminate we judge apart. What we distinguish we mark apart, or recognize by some special mark or manifest difference. We discriminate by real differences, we distinguish by outward signs. An officer is readily distinguished from a common soldier by his uniform. Objects may be dimly discerned at twilight, when yet we cannot clearly distinguish one from another. We descry, originally sb, what is difficult to discover. Compare discover, look. Start of a new word, discover. Discover. Synonyms: ascertain, detect, disclose, ferret out, find out, descry, discern, expose, find, invent. Of human actions or character, detect is used, almost without exception, in a bad sense. Discover may be used in either the good or the bad sense, oftener in the good. He was detected in a fraud. Real merit is sure to be discovered. In scientific language, detect is used of delicate indications that appear in course of careful watching, as a slight fluttering of the pulse could be detected. We discover what has existed but has not been known to us. We invent combinations or arrangements not before in use. Columbus discovered America. Morse invented the electric telegraph. Find is the most general word for every means of coming to know what was not before certainly known. A man finds in the road some stranger's purse, or finds his own which he is searching for. The expert discovers or detects an error in an account. The auditor finds the account to be correct. Compare, discern. Antonyms, see synonyms for hide. Start of a new word, disease. Disease. Synonyms, affection, disorder, indisposition, sickness, ailment, distemper, infirmity, unhealthiness, complaint, illness, malady, unsoundness. Disease is the general term for any deviation from health. In a more limited sense it denotes some definite morbid condition. Disorder and affection are rather partial and limited, as a nervous affection, a disorder of the digestive system. Sickness was generally used in English speech and literature, till the close of the 18th century at least, for every form of physical disorder, as abundantly appears in the English Bible. Jesus went about, healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. Matt 4:23. Elisha was fallen sick of his sickness whereof he died. 2 Kings 13:14. There is now, in England, a tendency to restrict the words sick and sickness to nausea, or sickness at the stomach, and to hold ill and illness as the only proper words to use in a general sense. This distinction has received but a very limited acceptance in the United States, where sick and sickness have the earlier and wider usage. We speak of trifling ailments, a slight indisposition, a serious or a deadly disease, a slight or severe illness, a painful sickness. Complaint is a popular term, which may be applied to any degree of ill health, slight or severe. Infirmity denotes a chronic or lingering weakness or disability, as blindness or lameness. Antonyms, health, robustness, soundness, strength, sturdiness, vigor. Start of a new word, disparage. Disparage. Synonyms, belittle, depreciate, discredit, underestimate, carp at, derogate from, dishonor, underrate, decry, detract from, lower, undervalue. To decry is to cry down, in some noisy, public, or conspicuous manner. A witness or a statement is discredited, the currency is depreciated, a good name is dishonored by unworthy conduct. We underestimate in our own minds. We may underrate or undervalue in statement to others. These words are used, with few exceptions, of things such as qualities, merits, attainments, etc. To disparage is to belittle by damaging comparison or suggestion. It is used only of things. A man's achievements are disparaged, his motives depreciated, his professions discredited, he himself is calumniated, slandered, etc. Compare slander. Antonyms, see synonyms for praise. Start of a new word, displace. Displace. Synonyms, confuse, derange, disturb, mislay, remove, crowd out, disarrange, jumble, misplace, unsettle. Objects are displaced when moved out of the place they have occupied. They are misplaced when put into a place where they should not be. One may know where to find what he has misplaced. What he has mislaid he cannot locate. Antonyms, adjust, assort, dispose, order, put in order, set in order, array, classify, group, place, put in place, sort. Start of a new word, do. Do. Synonyms, accomplish, carry out, discharge, perform, achieve, carry through, effect, perpetrate, actualize, commit, execute, realize, bring about, complete, finish, transact, bring to pass, consummate, fulfill, work out. Do is the one comprehensive word which includes this whole class. We may say of the least item of daily work, it is done, and of the grandest human achievement, well done. Finish and complete signify to bring to an end what was previously begun. There is frequently the difference in usage that finish is applied to the fine details and is superficial, while complete is comprehensive, being applied to the whole ideal, plan, and execution, as, to finish a statue, to complete a scheme of philosophy. To discharge is to do what is given in charge, expected, or required, as, to discharge the duties of the office. To fulfill is to do or to be what has been promised, expected, hoped, or desired, as, a son fulfills a father's hopes. Realize, affect, execute, and consummate all signify to embody in fact what was before in thought. One may realize that which he has done nothing to bring about. He may realize the dreams of youth by inheriting a fortune, but he cannot effect his early designs except by doing the utmost that is necessary to make them fact. Effect includes all that is done to accomplish the intent, execute refers rather to the final steps, consummate is limited quite sharply to the concluding act. An officer executes the law when he proceeds against its violators. A purchase is consummated when the money is paid and the property delivered. Execute refers more commonly to the commands of another, effect and consummate to one's own designs, as, the commander effected the capture of the fort, because his officers and men promptly executed his commands. Achieve to do something worthy of a chief signifies always to perform some great and generally some worthy exploit. Perform and accomplish both imply working toward the end, but perform always allows a possibility of not attaining, while accomplish carries the thought of full completion. In Longfellow's lines, patience, accomplish thy labor, etc., perform could not be substituted without great loss. As between complete and accomplish, complete considers rather the thing as done, accomplish, the whole process of doing it. Commit, as applied to actions, is used only of those that are bad, whether grave or trivial. Perpetrate is used chiefly of aggravated crimes or, somewhat humorously, of blunders. A man may commit a sin, a trespass, or a murder, perpetrate an outrage or a felony. We finish a garment or a letter, complete an edifice or a life work, consummate a bargain or a crime, discharge a duty, effect a purpose, execute a command, fulfill a promise, perform our daily tasks, realize an ideal, accomplish a design, achieve a victory. Compare transact, transaction. Antonyms: baffle, defeat, fail, mar, miss, ruin, come short, destroy, frustrate, miscarry, neglect, spoil. Start of a new word: docile. Docile. Synonyms: amenable, manageable, pliant, teachable, compliant, obedient, submissive, tractable, gentle, pliable, tame, yielding. One who is docile is easily taught. One who is tractable is easily led. One who is pliant is easily bent in any direction. Compliant represents one as inclined or persuaded to agreement with another's will. Compare duty. Antonyms: determined, inflexible, opinionated, self-willed, willful, dogged, intractable, resolute, stubborn, unyielding. Firm, obstinate. Start of a new word: doctrine. Doctrine. Synonyms: article of belief, belief, precept, teaching, article of faith, dogma, principle, tenet. Doctrine primarily signifies that which is taught, principle, the fundamental basis on which the teaching rests. A doctrine is reasoned out, and may be defended by reasoning. A dogma rests on authority, as of direct revelation, the decision of the Church, etc. A doctrine or dogma is a statement of some one item of belief. A creed is a summary of doctrines or dogmas. Dogma has commonly, at the present day, an offensive signification, as of a belief arrogantly asserted. Tenet is simply that which is held, and is applied to a single item of belief. It is a neutral word, neither approving nor condemning. We speak of the doctrines of our own church, of the tenets of others. A precept relates not to belief, but to conduct. Compare faith, law. Start of a new word: dogmatic. Dogmatic. Synonyms: arrogant, doctrinal, magisterial, positive, authoritative, domineering, opinionated, self-opinionated, dictatorial, imperious, overbearing, systematic. Dogmatic is technically applied in a good sense to that which is formally enunciated by adequate authority, doctrinal to that which is stated in the form of doctrine to be taught or defended. Dogmatic theology, called also dogmatics, gives definite propositions, which it holds to be delivered by authority. Systematic theology considers the same propositions in their logical connection and order as parts of a system. A doctrinal statement is less absolute in its claims than a dogmatic treatise, and may be more partial than the term systematic would imply. Outside of theology, dogmatic has generally an offensive sense. A dogmatic statement is one for which the author does not trouble himself to give a reason, either because of the strength of his convictions, or because of his contempt for those whom he addresses. Thus dogmatic is, in common use, allied with arrogant and kindred words. Start of a new word, doubt. Doubt. Synonyms: distrust, mistrust, surmise, suspect. To doubt is to lack conviction. Incompleteness of evidence may compel one to doubt, or some perverse bias of mind may incline him to. Distrust may express simply a lack of confidence, as, I distrust my own judgment, or it may be nearly equivalent to suspect, as, I distrusted that man from the start. Mistrust and suspect imply that one is almost assured of positive evil. One may distrust himself or others, he suspects others. Mistrust is now rarely, if ever, used of persons, but only of motives, intentions, etc. Distrust is always serious, mistrust is often used playfully. Compare suppose. Compare synonyms for doubt, and antonyms: believe, depend on, depend upon, rely upon, trust. Confide in. Start of a new word, doubt. Doubt. Synonyms: disbelief, incredulity, perplexity, suspense, distrust, indecision, question, suspicion, hesitancy, irresolution, scruple, unbelief, hesitation, misgiving, skepticism, uncertainty. Doubt is a lack of conviction that may refer either to matters of belief or to matters of practice. As regards belief, while doubt is lack of conviction, disbelief is conviction. To the contrary, unbelief refers to a settled state of mind, generally accompanied with opposition of heart. Perplexity is active and painful, doubt may be quiescent. Perplexity presses toward a solution, doubt may be content to linger unresolved. Any improbable statement awakens incredulity. In theological usage, unbelief and skepticism have a condemnatory force, as implying willful rejection of manifest truth. As regards practical matters, uncertainty applies to the unknown or undecided, doubt implies some negative evidence. Suspense regards the future, and is eager and anxious. Uncertainty may relate to any period, and be quite indifferent. Misgiving is ordinarily in regard to the outcome of something already done or decided. Hesitation, indecision, and irresolution have reference to something that remains to be decided or done, and are due oftener to infirmity of will than to lack of knowledge. Distrust and suspicion apply especially to the motives, character, etc., of others, and are more decidedly adverse than doubt. Scruple relates to matters of conscience and duty. Antonyms: assurance, certainty, conviction, determination, resolution, belief, confidence, decision, persuasion, resolve. Start of a new word, draw. Draw. Synonyms: allure, drag, haul, induce, lure, tow, attract, entice, incline, lead, pull, tug. One object draws another when it moves it toward itself or in the direction of its own motion by the exertion of adequate force, whether slight or powerful. To attract is to exert a force that tends to draw, though it may produce no actual motion. All objects are attracted toward the earth, though they may be sustained from falling. To drag is to draw against strong resistance, as, to drag a sled over bare ground, or a carriage up a steep hill. To pull is to exert a drawing force, whether adequate or inadequate, as, the fish pulls on the line, a dentist pulls a tooth. To tug is to draw, or try to draw, a resisting object with a continuous straining motion, as, to tug at the oar. To haul is to draw somewhat slowly a heavy object, as, to haul a seine, to haul logs. One vessel tows another. In the figurative sense, attract is more nearly akin to incline, draw to induce. We are attracted by one's appearance, drawn to his side. Compare allure, array, influence. Antonyms: alienate, estrange, rebuff, reject, repel, repulse. See synonyms for drive. Prepositions: to draw water from or out of the well, draw the boat through the water, to the shore, draw air into the lungs, draw with cords of love, the wagon is drawn by horses, along the road, across the field, over the stones. Through the woods, to the barn. Start of a new word, dream. Dream. Synonyms: daydream, fantasy, reverie, trance, fancy, hallucination, romance, vision. A dream is strictly a train of thoughts, fantasies, and images passing through the mind during sleep. A vision may occur when one is awake, and in clear exercise of the senses and mental powers. Vision is often applied to something seen by the mind through supernatural agency, whether in sleep or wakefulness, conceived as more real and authoritative than a dream. A trance is an abnormal state, which is different from normal sleep or wakefulness. A reverie is a purposeless drifting of the mind when awake, under the influence of mental images, a daydream that which passes before the mind in such condition. A fancy is some image presented to the mind, often in the fullest exercise of its powers. Hallucination is the seeming perception of non-existent objects, as in insanity or delirium. In the figurative sense, we speak of dreams of fortune, visions of glory, with little difference of meaning except that the vision is thought of as fuller and more vivid. We speak of a trance of delight when the emotion almost sweeps one away from the normal exercise of the faculties. Antonyms: certainty, fact, reality, realization, substance, verity. Start of a new word, dress. Dress. Synonyms: apparel, clothes, garb, habit, uniform, array, clothing, garments, raiment, vestments, attire, costume, habiliments, robes, vesture. Clothing denotes the entire covering of the body, taken as a whole. Clothes and garments view it as composed of separate parts. Clothes, clothing, and garments may be used of inner or outer covering. All the other words in the list, with possible rare exceptions in the case of raiment, refer to the outer garments. Array, raiment, and vesture are archaic or poetic, so, too, is habit, except in technical use to denote a lady's riding dress. The word vestments is now rare, except in ecclesiastical use. Apparel and attire are most frequently used of somewhat complete and elegant outer clothing, though Shakespeare speaks of poor and mean attire. Dress may be used, specifically, for a woman's gown, and in that sense may be either rich or shabby, but in the general sense it denotes outer clothing which is meant to be elegant, complete, and appropriate to some social or public occasion, as full dress, court dress, evening dress, etc. Dress has now largely displaced apparel and attire. Garb denotes the clothing characteristic of some class, profession, or the like, as the garb of a priest. Costume is chiefly used for that which befits an assumed character, as a theatrical costume. We sometimes speak of a national costume, etc. Antonyms: bareness, dishabille, exposure, nakedness, nudity, undress. Disarray. Start of a new word, drive. Drive. Synonyms: compel, propel, repel, resist, thrust, impel, push, repulse, ride, urge on. To drive is to move an object with some force or violence before or away from oneself. It is the direct reverse of draw, lead, etc. A man leads a horse by the halter, drives him with whip and rein. One may be driven to a thing or from it, hence, drive is a synonym equally for compel or for repel or repulse. Repulse is stronger and more conclusive than repel. One may be repelled by the very aspect of the person whose favor he seeks, but is not repulsed except by the direct refusal or ignoring of his suit. A certain conventional modern usage, especially in England, requires us to say that we drive in a carriage, ride upon a horse, though in Scripture we read of riding in a chariot, 2 Kings 9:16, 17:25, etc. Good examples of the same usage may be found abundantly in the Older English. The propriety of a person saying that he is going to drive when he is simply to be conveyed in a carriage, where someone else, as the coachman, does all the driving, is exceedingly questionable. Many good authorities prefer to use ride in the older and broader sense as signifying to be supported and borne along by any means of conveyance. Compare banish, compel, influence. Antonyms, see synonyms for draw. Prepositions, drive to market, to despair, drive into exile, from one's presence, out of the city, drive by, with, or under the lash, drive by or past beautiful estates, along the beach, beside the river, through the park, across the field, around the square, to the door, into the barn, out of the sunshine. Start of a new word, duplicate. Duplicate. Synonyms, copy, facsimile, likeness, reproduction, counterpart, imitation, replica, transcript. A copy is as nearly like the original as the copyist has power to make it. A duplicate is exactly like the original. A carbon copy of a typewritten document must be a duplicate. We may have an inaccurate copy, but never an inaccurate duplicate. A facsimile is like the original in appearance. A duplicate is the same as the original in substance and effect. A facsimile of the Declaration of Independence is not a duplicate. A facsimile of a key might be quite useless. A duplicate will open the lock. A counterpart exactly corresponds to another object, but perhaps without design, while a copy is intentional. An imitation is always thought of as inferior to the original, as an imitation of Milton. A replica is a copy of a work of art by the maker of the original. In law, a copy of an instrument has in itself no authority. The signatures, as well as other matters, may be copied. A duplicate is really an original, containing the same provisions and signed by the same persons, so that it may have in all respects the same force and effect. A transcript is an official copy, authenticated by the signature of the proper officer, and by the seal of the appropriate court. While strictly there could be but one duplicate, the word is now extended to an indefinite number of exact copies. Reproduction is chiefly applied to living organisms. Antonyms: archetype, model, original, pattern, prototype. Start of a new word, duty. Duty. Synonyms: accountability, function, office, right, business, obligation, responsibility, righteousness. Etymologically, duty is that which is owed or due, obligation, that to or by which one is bound, right, that which is correct, straight, or in the direct line of truth and goodness, responsibility, that for which one must answer. Duty and responsibility are thought of as to some person or persons, right is impersonal. One's duty may be to others or to himself, his obligations and responsibilities are to others. Duty arises from the nature of things. Obligation and responsibility may be created by circumstances, as by one's own promise, or by the acceptance of a trust, etc. We speak of a parent's duty, a debtor's obligation, or of a child's duty of obedience, and a parent's responsibility for the child's welfare. Right is that which accords with the moral system of the universe. Righteousness is right incarnated in action. In a more limited sense, right may be used of what one may rightly claim, and so be the converse of duty. It is the creditor's right to demand payment, and the debtor's duty to pay. Compare business. Start of a new word, eager. Eager. Synonyms: animated, desirous, glowing, importunate, longing, anxious, earnest, hot, intense, vehement, ardent, enthusiastic, impatient, intent, yearning, burning, fervent, impetuous, keen, zealous. One is eager who impatiently desires to accomplish some end. One is earnest with a desire that is less impatient, but more deep, resolute, and constant. One is anxious with a desire that foresees rather the pain of disappointment than the delight of attainment. One is eager for the gratification of any appetite or passion. He is earnest in conviction, purpose, or character. Eager usually refers to some specific and immediate satisfaction, earnest to something permanent and enduring. The patriotic soldier is earnest in his devotion to his country, eager for a decisive battle. Antonyms: apathetic, cool, indifferent, regardless, unconcerned, calm, dispassionate, negligent, stolid, uninterested, careless, frigid, phlegmatic, stony, unmindful, cold, heedless, purposeless, stupid, unmoved. Prepositions: eager for, more rarely after, favor, honor, etc., eager in pursuit. Start of a new word: ease. Ease. Synonyms: easiness, expertness, facility, knack, readiness. Ease in the sense here considered denotes freedom from conscious or apparent effort, tax, or strain. Ease may be either of condition or of action. Facility is always of action, readiness is of action or of expected action. One lives at ease who has no pressing cares, one stands at ease, moves or speaks with ease, when wholly without constraint. Facility is always active, readiness may be active or passive. The speaker has facility of expression, readiness of wit, any appliance is in readiness for use. Ease of action may imply merely the possession of ample power. Facility always implies practice and skill. Anyone can press down the keys of a typewriter with ease, only the skilled operator works the machine with facility. Readiness in the active sense includes much of the meaning of ease with the added idea of promptness or alertness. Easiness applies to the thing done, rather than to the doer. Expertness applies to the more mechanical processes of body and mind. We speak of the readiness of an orator, but of the expertness of a gymnast. Compare comfortable, dexterity, power. Antonyms: annoyance, difficulty, irritation, trouble, vexation, awkwardness, discomfort, perplexity, uneasiness, worry. Constraint, disquiet. Start of a new word: education. Education. Synonyms: breeding, discipline, learning, study, cultivation, information, nurture, teaching, culture, instruction, reading, training, development, knowledge, schooling, tuition. Education, educere, to lead or draw out, is the systematic development and cultivation of the mind and other natural powers. Education is the harmonious development of all our faculties. It begins in the nursery, and goes on at school, but does not end there. It continues through life, whether we will or not. Every person, says Gibbon, has two educations, one which he receives from others, and one more important, which he gives himself. John Lubbock. The Use of Life, ch. 7, page 111. Emacium. 94. Instruction, the impartation of knowledge by others, instruere, to build in or into, is but a part of education, often the smallest part. Teaching is the more familiar and less formal word for instruction. Training refers not merely to the impartation of knowledge, but to the exercising of one in actions with the design to form habits. Discipline is systematic and rigorous training, with the idea of subjection to authority and perhaps of punishment. Tuition is the technical term for teaching as the business of an instructor or as in the routine of a school. Tuition is narrower than teaching, not, like the latter word, including training. Study is emphatically what one does for himself. We speak of the teaching, training, or discipline, but not of the education or tuition of a dog or a horse. Breeding and nurture include teaching and training, especially as directed by and dependent upon home life and personal association, breeding having reference largely to manners with such qualities as are deemed distinctively characteristic of high birth, nurture, literally nourishing, having more direct reference to moral qualities, not overlooking the physical and mental. Knowledge and learning tell nothing of mental development apart from the capacity to acquire and remember, and nothing whatever of that moral development which is included in education in its fullest and noblest sense. Learning, too, may be acquired by one's unaided industry, but any full education must be the result in great part of instruction, training, and personal association. Study is emphatically what one does for himself, and in which instruction and tuition can only point the way, encourage the student to advance, and remove obstacles. Vigorous, persevering study is one of the best elements of training. Study is also used in the sense of the thing studied, a subject to be mastered by study, a studious pursuit. Compare knowledge, refinement, wisdom. Antonyms: ignorance, illiteracy. Compare synonyms for ignorant. Start of a new word, effrontery. Effrontery. Synonyms: assurance, boldness, hardihood, insolence, audacity, brass, impudence, shamelessness. Audacity, in the sense here considered, is a reckless defiance of law, decency, public opinion, or personal rights, claims, or views, approaching the meaning of impudence or shamelessness, but always carrying the thought of the personal risk that one disregards in such defiance. The merely impudent or shameless person may take no thought of consequences. The audacious person recognizes and recklessly braves them. Hardihood defies and disregards the rational judgment of men. Effrontery, effronts, barefaced, shameless, adds to audacity and hardihood the special element of defiance of considerations of propriety, duty, and respect for others, yet not to the extent implied in impudence or shamelessness. Impudence disregards what is due to superiors, shamelessness defies decency. Boldness is forward-stepping courage, spoken of with reference to the presence and observation of others. Boldness, in the good sense, is courage viewed from the outside, but the word is frequently used in an unfavorable sense to indicate a lack of proper sensitiveness and modesty. Compare assurance, brave. Antonyms: bashfulness, diffidence, sensitiveness, shyness, coyness, modesty, shrinking, timidity. Start of a new word, egotism. Egotism. Synonyms: conceit, self-assertion, self-confidence, self-esteem, egoism, self-conceit, self-consciousness, vanity. Egoism is giving thy undue supremacy in thought, egotism is giving thy undue prominence in speech. Egotism is sometimes used in the sense of egoism, or supreme regard for oneself. Self-assertion is the claim by word, act, or manner of what one believes to be his due. Self-conceit is an overestimate of one's own powers or deserts. Conceit is a briefer expression for self-conceit, with always an offensive implication. Self-conceit is ridiculous or pitiable, conceit arouses resentment. There is a worthy self-confidence which springs from consciousness of rectitude and of power equal to demands. Self-assertion at times becomes a duty, but self-conceit is always a weakness. Self-consciousness is the keeping of one's thoughts upon oneself, with the constant anxious question of what others will think. Vanity is an overweening admiration of self, craving equal admiration from others. Self-consciousness is commonly painful to its possessor, vanity always a source of satisfaction, except as it fails to receive its supposed due. Self-esteem is more solid and better founded than self-conceit, but is ordinarily a weakness, and never has the worthy sense of self-confidence. Compare assurance, pride. Antonyms: bashfulness, humility, self-forgetfulness, unobtrusiveness, deference, modesty, shyness, unostentatiousness. Diffidence, self-distrust. Start of a new word, emblem. Emblem. Synonyms: attribute, figure, image, sign, symbol, token, type. Emblem is the English form of emblema, a Latin word of Greek origin, signifying a figure beaten out on a metallic vessel by blows from within, also, a figure inlaid in wood, stone, or other material as a copy of some natural object. The Greek word symbolon denoted a victor's wreath, a check, or any object that might be compared with, or found to correspond with another, whether there was or was not anything in the objects compared to suggest the comparison. Thus an emblem resembles, a symbol represents. An emblem has some natural fitness to suggest that for which it stands. A symbol has been chosen or agreed upon to suggest something else, with or without natural fitness. A sign does actually suggest the thing with or without reason, and with or without intention or choice. A symbol may be also an emblem, thus the elements of bread and wine in the Lord's Supper are both appropriate emblems and His own chosen symbols of suffering and death. A statement of doctrine is often called a symbol of faith, but it is not an emblem. On the other hand, the same thing may be both a sign and a symbol. A letter of the alphabet is a sign which indicates a sound, but letters are often used as mathematical, chemical, or astronomical symbols. A token is something given or done as a pledge or expression of feeling or intent, while the sign may be unintentional, the token is voluntary. Kind looks may be signs of regard, a gift is a token, a ring, which is a natural emblem of eternity, and also its accepted symbol, is frequently given as a token of friendship or love. A figure in the sense here considered as something that represents an idea to the mind somewhat as a form is represented to the eye, as in drawing, painting, or sculpture, as representing a future reality. A figure may be practically the same as a type. An image is a visible representation, especially in sculpture, having or supposed to have a close resemblance to that which it represents. A type is in religion a representation of a greater reality to come. We speak of one object as the type of the class whose characteristics it exhibits, as in the case of animal or vegetable types. An attribute in art is some accessory used to characterize a figure or scene. The attribute is often an emblem or symbol. Thus the eagle is the attribute of St. John as an emblem of lofty spiritual vision. Compare sign. Start of a new word, emigrate. Emigrate. Synonyms, immigrate, migrate. To migrate is to change one's dwelling place, usually with the idea of repeated change, or of periodical return. It applies to wandering tribes of men, and to many birds and animals. Emigrate and immigrate carry the idea of a permanent change of residence to some other country or some distant region. The two words are used distinctively of human beings, and apply to the same person and the same act, according to the side from which the action is viewed. Prepositions. A person emigrates from the land he leaves, and immigrates to the land where he takes up his abode. Start of a new word, employ. Employ. Synonyms. Call, engage, engross, hire, make use of, use up. In general terms it may be said that to employ is to devote to one's purpose, to use is to render subservient to one's purpose. What is used is viewed as more absolutely an instrument than what is employed. A merchant employs a clerk, he uses pen and paper. As a rule, use is not said of persons, except in a degrading sense, as, the conspirators used him as a go-between. Hence the expression common in some religious circles that God would use me is not to be commended. It is also the fault of representing the human worker as absolutely a passive and helpless instrument. The phrase is altogether unscriptural. The scripture says, we are laborers together with, co-workers with, God. That which is used is often consumed in the using, or in familiar phrase used up, as, we used 20 tons of coal last winter. In such cases we could not substitute employ. A person may be employed in his own work or in that of another. In the latter case the service is always understood to be for pay. In this connection employ is a word of more dignity than hire. A general is employed in his country's service. A mercenary adventurer is hired to fight a tyrant's battles. It is unsuitable, according to present usage, to speak of hiring a pastor. The scripture, indeed, says of the preacher, the laborer is worthy of his hire, but this sense is archaic, and hire now implies that the one hired works directly and primarily for the pay, as expressed in the noun hireling. A pastor is properly said to be called, or when the business side of the transaction is referred to, engaged, or possibly employed, at a certain salary. Prepositions, employ in, on, upon, or about a work, business, etc., for a purpose, at a stipulated salary. Start of a new word, end. End. Synonyms, break off, close, conclude, expire, quit, terminate, cease, complete, desist, finish, stop, wind up. That ends, or is ended, of which there is no more, whether or not more was intended or needed, that is closed, completed, concluded, or finished which has come to an expected or appropriate end. A speech may be ended almost as soon as begun, because of the speaker's illness, or of tumult in the audience. In such a case, the speech is neither closed, completed, nor finished, nor, in the strict sense, concluded. An argument may be closed with nothing proved. When an argument is concluded, all that is deemed necessary to prove the point has been stated. To finish is to do the last thing there is to do, as, I have finished my course, 2 Tim 4:7. Finish has come to mean, not merely to complete in the essentials, but to perfect in all the minute details, as in the expression, to add the finishing touches. The enumeration is completed, the poem, the picture, the statue is finished. To terminate may be either to bring to an arbitrary or to an appropriate end, as, he terminated his remarks abruptly, the spire terminates in a cross. A thing stops that comes to rest from motion, or the motion stops or ceases when the object comes to rest. Stop frequently signifies to bring or come to a sudden and decided cessation of motion, progress, or action of any kind. Compare do, transact. Antonyms, see synonyms for begin. Start of a new word, end. End. Synonyms, accomplishment, effect, limit, achievement, expiration, outcome, bound, extent, period, boundary, extremity, point, cessation, finale, purpose, close, finesse, result, completion, finish, termination, conclusion, fulfillment, terminus, consequence, goal, tip, consummation, intent, utmost, design, issue, uttermost. The end is the terminal part of a material object that has length. The extremity is distinctively the terminal point, and may thus be but part of the end in the general sense of that word. The extremity is viewed as that which is most remote from some center, or some mean or standard position. The southern end of South America includes all Patagonia. The southern extremity or point is Cape Horn. Tip has nearly the same meaning as extremity, but is said of small or slight and tapering objects, as the tip of the finger. Point in such connections is said of that which is drawn out to exceeding fineness or sharpness, as the point of a needle, a fork, or a sword. Extremity is said of something considerable. We do not speak of the extremity of a needle. Terminus is chiefly used to designate the end of a line of travel or transportation, specifically, the furthermost station in any direction on a railway, or by extension the town or village where it is situated. Termination is the Latin and more formal word for the Saxon end, but is chiefly used of time, words, undertakings, or abstractions of any kind. Expiration signifies the coming to an end in the natural course of things, as the expiration of a year, or of a lease. It is used of things of some consequence. We do not ordinarily speak of the expiration of an hour or of a day. Limit implies some check to or restraint upon further advance, right, or privilege, as the limits of an estate. Compare boundary. A goal is an end sought or striven for, as in a race. For the figurative senses of end and its associated words, compare the synonyms for the verb end, also for aim, consequence, design. Antonyms, see synonyms for beginning. Start of a new word, endeavor. Endeavor. Synonyms, attempt, essay, strive, try, undertake. To attempt is to take action somewhat experimentally with the hope and purpose of accomplishing a certain result. To endeavor is to attempt strenuously and with firm and enduring purpose. To attempt expresses a single act. To endeavor, a continuous exertion. We say I will endeavor, not I will attempt, while I live. To attempt is with the view of accomplishing. To essay, with a view of testing our own powers. To undertake is to accept or take upon oneself as an obligation, as some business, labor, or trust. The word often implies complete assurance of success, as, I will undertake to produce the witness. To strive suggests little of the result, much of toil, strain, and contest. In seeking it, I will strive to fulfill your wishes, i.e., I will spare no labor and exertion to do it. Try is the most comprehensive of these words. The original idea of testing or experimenting is not thought of when a man says I will try. To attempt suggests giving up, if the thing is not accomplished at a stroke. To try implies using other means and studying out other ways if not at first successful. Endeavor is more mild and formal. The pilot in the burning pilot house does not say, I will endeavor or I will attempt to hold the ship to her course, but I'll try, sir. Antonyms, abandon, give up, omit, throw away, dismiss, let go, overlook, throw over, drop, neglect, pass by, throw up. Start of a new word, endeavor. Endeavor. Synonyms, attempt, effort, essay, exertion, struggle, trial. Effort denotes the voluntary putting forth of power to attain or accomplish some specific thing. It reaches toward a definite end. Exertion is a putting forth of power without special reference to an object. Every effort is an exertion, but not every exertion is an effort. Attempt is more experimental than effort, endeavor less strenuous but more continuous. An effort is a single act, an endeavor a continued series of acts. An endeavor is sustained and enduring, and may be lifelong. We do not have a society of Christian attempt, or of Christian effort, but of Christian endeavor. A struggle is a violent effort or strenuous exertion. An essay is an attempt, effort, or endeavor made as a test of the powers of the one who makes it. Compare endeavor, v. Start of a new word, endure. Endure. Synonyms: abide, bear, brook, submit to, sustain, afford, bear up under, permit, suffer, tolerate, allow, bear with, put up with, support, undergo. Bear is the most general of these words. It is metaphorically to hold up or keep up a burden of care, pain, grief, annoyance, or the like, without sinking, lamenting, or repining. Allow and permit involve large concession of the will. Put up with and tolerate imply decided aversion and reluctant withholding of opposition or interference. Whispering is allowed by the school teacher who does not forbid nor censure it. One puts up with the presence of a disagreeable visitor. A state tolerates a religion which it would be glad to suppress. To endure is to bear with strain and resistance, but with conscious power. Endure conveys a fuller suggestion of contest and conquest than bear. One may choose to endure the pain of a surgical operation rather than take anesthetics. He permits the thing to come which he must brace himself to endure when it comes. To afford is to be equal to a pecuniary demand, i.e., to be able to bear it. To brook is quietly to put up with provocation or insult. Abide combines the senses of await and endure, as, I will abide the result. Compare abide, support. Antonyms: break, despair, fail, fall, give out, sink, surrender, break down, droop, faint, falter, give up, succumb, yield. Start of a new word, enemy. Enemy. Synonyms: adversary, antagonist, competitor, foe, opponent, rival. An enemy in private life is one who is moved by hostile feeling with active disposition to injure. But in military language all who fight on the opposite side are called enemies or collectively the enemy, where no personal animosity may be implied. Foe, which is rather a poetical and literary word, implies intensely hostile spirit and purpose. An antagonist is one who opposes and is opposed actively and with intensity of effort. An opponent, one in whom the attitude of resistance is the more prominent. A competitor, one who seeks the same object for which another is striving. Antagonists in wrestling, competitors in business, opponents in debate may contend with no personal ill will. Rivals in love, ambition, etc., rarely avoid inimical feeling. Adversary was formerly much used in the general sense of antagonist or opponent, but is now less common, and largely restricted to the hostile sense. An adversary is ordinarily one who not only opposes another in fact, but does so with hostile spirit, or perhaps out of pure malignity, as, the great adversary. Compare synonyms for ambition. Antonyms: abettor, accessory, accomplice, ally, friend, helper, supporter. Prepositions: he was the enemy of my friend in the contest. Start of a new word, enmity. Enmity. Synonyms: acrimony, bitterness, ill will, malignity, animosity, hatred, malevolence, rancor, antagonism, hostility, malice, spite. Enmity is the state of being an enemy or the feeling and disposition characterizing an enemy. Compare enemy. Animosity denotes a feeling more active and vehement, but often less enduring and determined, than enmity. Enmity distinctly recognizes its object as an enemy, to be met or dealt with accordingly. Hostility is enmity in action. The term hostilities between nations denotes actual armed collision. Bitterness is a resentful feeling arising from a belief that one has been wronged. Acrimony is a kindred feeling, but deeper and more persistent, and may arise from the crossing of one's wishes or plans by another, where no injustice or wrong is felt. Antagonism, as between two competing authors or merchants. does not necessarily imply enmity, but ordinarily suggests a shade, at least, of hostile feeling. Malice is a disposition or intent to injure others, for the gratification of some evil passion. Malignity is intense and violent enmity, hatred, or malice. Compare synonyms for acrimony: anger, hatred. Antonyms: agreement, amity, friendship, kindliness, regard, alliance, concord, harmony, kindness, sympathy. Start of a new word: entertain. Entertain. Synonyms: amuse, cheer, disport, enliven, interest, please, beguile, delight, divert, gratify, occupy, recreate. To entertain, in the sense here considered, is to engage and pleasantly occupy the attention. To amuse is to occupy the attention in an especially bright and cheerful way, often with that which excites merriment or laughter, as, "He entertained us with an amusing story." To divert is to turn from serious thoughts or laborious pursuits to something that lightly and agreeably occupies the mind. One may be entertained or amused who has nothing serious or laborious from which to be diverted. To recreate, literally to recreate, is to engage mind or body in some pleasing activity that restores strength and energy for serious work. To beguile is, as it were, to cheat into cheer and comfort by something that insensibly draws thought or feeling away from pain or disquiet. We beguile a weary hour, cheer the despondent, divert the preoccupied, enliven a dull evening or company, gratify our friends' wishes, entertain, interest, please a listening audience, occupy idle time, disport ourselves when merry, recreate when worn with toil. We amuse ourselves or others with whatever pleasantly passes the time without special exertion, each according to his taste. Antonyms: annoy, bore, busy, disquiet, distract, disturb, tire, weary. Start of a new word: entertainment. Entertainment. Synonyms: amusement, diversion, fun, pleasure, cheer, enjoyment, merriment, recreation, delight, frolic, pastime, sport. Entertainment and recreation imply thought and mental occupation, though in an agreeable, refreshing way. They are therefore words of a high order. Entertainment, apart from its special senses of a public performance or a social party, and predominantly even there, is used of somewhat mirthful mental delight. Recreation may, and usually does, combine the mental with the physical. Amusement and pastime are nearly equivalent, the latter probably the lighter word. Many slight things may be pastimes which we should hardly dignify by the name of amusements. Sports are almost wholly on the physical plane, though involving a certain grade of mental action. Fox hunting, horse racing, and baseball are sports. Certain sports may afford entertainment or recreation to certain persons, according to their individual tastes, but entertainment and recreation are capable of a meaning so high as never to be approached by any meaning of sport. Cheer may be very quiet, as the cheer of a bright fire to an aged traveler. Merriment is with liveliness and laughter. Fun and frolic are apt to be boisterous. Amusement is a form of enjoyment, but enjoyment may be too keen to be called amusement. Compare synonyms for entertain. Antonyms: ennui, fatigue, labor, lassitude, toil, weariness, work. Start of a new word: enthusiasm. Enthusiasm. Synonyms: ardor, excitement, frenzy, transport, devotion, extravagance, inspiration, vehemence, eagerness, fanaticism, intensity, warmth, earnestness, fervency, passion, zeal. Ecstasy, fervor, rapture. The old meaning of enthusiasm implies a pseudo-inspiration, an almost frantic extravagance in behalf of something supposed to be an expression of the divine will. This sense remains as the controlling one in the kindred noun enthusiast. Enthusiasm has now chiefly the meaning of an earnest and commendable devotion, an intense and eager interest. Against the hindrances of the world, nothing great and good can be carried without a certain fervor, intensity, and vehemence. These joined with faith, courage, and hopefulness make enthusiasm. Zeal is burning earnestness, always tending to vigorous action with all the devotion of enthusiasm, though often without its hopefulness. Compare eager. Antonyms: calculation, caution, deadness, indifference, policy, timidity, calmness, coldness, dullness, lukewarmness, prudence, wariness. Start of a new word, entrance. Entrance. Synonyms: access, approach, gate, introduction, accession, door, gateway, opening, adit, doorway, ingress, penetration, admission, entree, inlet, portal. Admittance, entry, entrance, the act of entering, refers merely to the fact of passing from without to within some enclosure. Admission and admittance refer to entering by or with someone's consent, or at least to opportunity afforded by someone's act or neglect. We may effect or force an entrance, but not admittance or admission, those we gain, procure, obtain, secure, win. Admittance refers to place, admission refers also to position, privilege, favor, friendship, etc. An intruder may gain admittance to the hall of a society who would not be allowed admission to its membership. Approach is a movement toward another, access is coming all the way to his presence, recognition, and consideration. An unworthy favorite may prevent even those who gain admittance to a king's audience from obtaining any real access to the king. Entrance is also used figuratively for setting out upon some career, or becoming a member of some organization, as, we speak of one's entrance upon college life, or of entrance into the ministry. Antonyms: departure, ejection, exit, refusal, withdrawal. Egress, exclusion, expulsion, rejection. Prepositions: entrance into a place, on or upon a work or course of action, into or upon office, into battle, by or through the door, within the gates, into or among the company. Start of a new word, envious. Envious. Synonyms: jealous, suspicious. One is envious who cherishes selfish ill will toward another because of his superior success, endowments, possessions, or the like. A person is envious of that which is another's, and to which he himself has no right or claim. He is jealous of intrusion upon that which is his own, or to which he maintains a right or claim. An envious spirit is always bad. A jealous spirit may be good or bad, according to its object and tendency. A free people must be jealous of their liberties if they would retain them. One is suspicious of another from unfavorable indications or from a knowledge of wrong in his previous conduct, or even without reason. Compare doubt. Antonyms: contented, friendly, kindly, satisfied, trustful, well-disposed. Prepositions: envious of, formerly at or against, a person, envious of his wealth or power, envious of him for, because of, on account of his wealth or power. Start of a new word, equivocal. Equivocal. Synonyms: ambiguous, enigmatical, indistinct, questionable, doubtful, indefinite, obscure, suspicious, dubious, indeterminate, perplexing, uncertain. Enigmatic, equivocal, aliquous, equal, and vox, voice, word, denotes that which may equally well be understood in either of two or more ways. Ambiguous, ambi, around, and ago, drive, lead, signifies lacking in distinctness or certainty, obscure or doubtful through indefiniteness of expression. Ambiguous is applied only to spoken or written statements. Equivocal has other applications. A statement is ambiguous when it leaves the mind of the reader or hearer to fluctuate between two meanings, which would fit the language equally well. It is equivocal when it would naturally be understood in one way, but is capable of a different interpretation. An equivocal expression is, as a rule, intentionally deceptive, while an ambiguous utterance may be simply the result of a want either of clear thought or of adequate expression. That which is enigmatical must be guessed like a riddle. A statement may be purposely made enigmatical in order to provoke thought and study. That is doubtful which is fairly open to doubt. That is dubious which has become the subject of doubts so grave as scarcely to fall short of condemnation, as a dubious reputation. Questionable may be used nearly in the sense either of dubious or of doubtful. A questionable statement is one that must be proved before it can be accepted. To say that one's honesty is questionable is a mild way of saying that in the opinion of the speaker he is likely to prove dishonest. Equivocal is sometimes, though more rarely, used in this sense. A suspicious character gives manifest reason to be suspected. A suspicious temper is inclined to suspect the motives and intentions of others, with or without reason. Compare clear. Antonyms: certain, evident, lucid, perspicuous, unequivocal, clear, indisputable, manifest, plain, unquestionable, distinct, indubitable, obvious, unambiguous, unquestioned. Start of a new word: esteem. Esteem. Synonyms: appreciate, consider, estimate, prize, think, calculate, deem, hold, regard, value. Esteem and estimate alike imply to set a certain mental value upon, but esteem is less precise and mercantile than calculate or estimate. We esteem a jewel precious, we estimate it to be worth so much money. This sense of esteem is now chiefly found in literary or oratorical style, and in certain conventional phrases, as, I esteem it an honor, a favor. In popular usage, esteem, a set of persons, denotes a union of respect and kindly feeling and, in the highest sense, of moral approbation, as, one whom I highly esteem. The word may be used in a similar sense of material things or abstractions, as, one whose friendship I esteem, a shell greatly esteemed for inlaid work. To appreciate anything is to be deeply or keenly sensible of or sensitive to its qualities or influence, to see its full import, be alive to its value, importance, or worth, as, to appreciate beauty or harmony, to appreciate one's services in a cause. The word is similarly, though rarely, used of persons. To prize is to set a high value on for something more than merely commercial reasons. One may value some object, as a picture, beyond all price, as a family heirloom, or may prize it as the gift of an esteemed friend, without at all appreciating its artistic merit or commercial value. To regard, regarder, look at, observe, is to have a certain mental view favorable or unfavorable, as, I regard him as a friend, or, I regard him as a villain. Regard has a distinctively favorable sense as applied to institutions, proprieties, duties, etc., but does not share the use of the noun regard as applied to persons. We regard the Sabbath, we regard a person's feelings, we have a regard for the person. Compare esteem, n. Start of a new word: esteem. Esteem. Synonyms: estimate, estimation, favor, regard, respect. Esteem for a person is a favorable opinion on the basis of worth, especially of moral worth, joined with a feeling of interest in and attraction toward the person. Regard for a person is the mental view or feeling that springs from a sense of his value, excellence, or superiority, with a cordial and hearty friendliness. Regard is more personal and less distant than esteem, and adds a special kindliness. Respect is a more distant word than esteem. Respect may be wholly on one side, while regard is more often mutual. Respect in the fullest sense is given to what is lofty, worthy, and honorable, or to a person of such qualities. We may pay an external respect to one of lofty station, regardless of personal qualities, showing respect for the office. Estimate has more of calculation, as, my estimate of the man, or of his abilities, is very high. Estimation involves the idea of calculation or appraisal with that of esteem or regard, and is especially used of the feeling entertained by numbers of people, as, he stood high in public estimation. Compare esteem, v. friendship, love. Antonyms: abhorrence, aversion, dislike, loathing, antipathy, contempt, hatred, repugnance. Start of a new word: eternal. Eternal. Synonyms: deathless, fadeless, never failing, undying, endless, immortal, perennial, unending, aeonian, imperishable, perpetual, unfading, everlasting, interminable, timeless, unfailing, ever-living, never-ending, unceasing, without end. Eternal strictly signifies without beginning or end, in which sense it applies to God alone. Everlasting applies to that which may or may not have beginning, but will never cease. Eternal is also used in this more limited sense. Endless, without end, in its utmost reach, is not distinguishable from everlasting, but endless is constantly used in inferior senses, especially in mechanics, as in the phrases an endless screw, an endless chain. Everlasting and endless are both used in a limited sense of protracted, indefinite, but not infinite duration, as, the everlasting hills, endless debates, so we speak of interminable quarrels. Eternal holds quite strictly to the vast and sacred meaning in which it is applied to the divine being and the future state. Everlasting, endless, and eternal may be applied to that which has no life, as everlasting chains, endless night, eternal death. Immortal applies to that which now has life, and is forever exempt from death. Timeless carries, perhaps, the fullest idea of eternal, as above and beyond time, and not to be measured by it. Start of a new word, event. Event. Synonyms: case, contingency, fortune, outcome, chance, end, incident, possibility, circumstance, episode, issue, result, consequence, fact, occurrence, sequel. Etymologically, the incident is that which falls in, the event that which comes out. Event is thus greater and more signal than incident. We speak of trifling incidents, great events, incidents of daily life, events of history. Circumstance agrees with incident in denoting a matter of relatively slight importance, but implies a more direct connection with the principal matter. Circumstantial evidence is evidence from seemingly minor matters directly connected with a case. Incidental evidence would be some evidence that happened unexpectedly to touch it. An occurrence is, etymologically, that which we run against, without thought of its origin, connection, or tendency. An episode is connected with the main course of events, like an incident or circumstance, but is of more independent interest and importance. Outcome is the Saxon, and event the Latin for expressing the same original idea. Consequence or result would express more of logical connection, and be more comprehensive. The end may be simple cessation, the event is what has been accomplished, the event of a war is victory or defeat, the end of the war is reached when a treaty of peace is signed. Since the future is contingent, event comes to have the meaning of a contingency, as, in the event of his death, the policy will at once fall due. Compare circumstance, consequence, and. Start of a new word, every. Every. Synonyms: all, any, both, each, either. All and both are collective, any, each, and every are distributive. Any makes no selection and may not reach to the full limits of all, each and every make no exception or omission, and must extend to all. All sweeps in the units as part of a total, each and every proceed through the units to the total. A promise made to all omits none, a promise made to any may not reach all, a promise made to every one is so made that no individual shall fail to be aware of it, a promise made to each is made to the individuals personally, one by one. Each is thus more individual and specific than every classifies, each individualizes. Each divides, both unites. If a certain sum is given to each of two persons, both, together, must receive twice the amount, both must be aware of what has been separately communicated to each. A man may fire both barrels of a gun by a single movement. If he fires each barrel, he discharges them separately. Either properly denotes one of two, indefinitely, to the exclusion of the other. The use of either in the sense of each or both, though sustained by good authority, is objectionable because ambiguous. His friend sat on either side of the room would naturally mean on one side or the other. If the meaning is on both sides, it would be better to say so. Start of a new word, evident. Evident. Synonyms: apparent, glaring, overt, tangible, clear, indubitable, palpable, transparent, conspicuous, manifest, patent, unmistakable, discernible, obvious, perceptible, visible. Distinct, open, plain, that is apparent which clearly appears to the senses or to the mind as soon as the attention is directed toward it, that is evident of which the mind is made sure by some inference that supplements the facts of perception. The marks of a struggle were apparent in broken shrubbery and trampled ground, and the finding of a mutilated body and a rifled purse made it evident that robbery and murder had been committed. That is manifest which we can lay the hand upon. Manifest is thus stronger than evident, as touch is more absolute than sight. That the picture was a modern copy of an ancient work was evident, and on comparison with the original its inferiority was manifest. That is obvious which is directly in the way so that it cannot be missed, as, the application of the remark was obvious. Visible applies to all that can be perceived by the sense of sight, whether the noonday sun, a ship on the horizon, or a microscopic object. Discernible applies to that which is dimly or faintly visible, requiring strain and effort in order to be seen, as, the ship was discernible through the mist. That is conspicuous which stands out so as necessarily or strikingly to attract the attention. Palpable and tangible express more emphatically the thought of manifest. Antonyms: concealed, impalpable, latent, secret, unknown, covert, impenetrable, obscure, undiscovered, unseen, dark, imperceptible, occult, unimagined, unthought of. Hidden, invisible. Start of a new word, example. Example. Synonyms: archetype, ideal, prototype, type, ensample, model, sample, warning. Exemplar, pattern, specimen, exemplification, precedent, standard, from its original sense of sample or specimen, exemplum, example derives the seemingly contradictory meanings, on the one hand of a pattern or model, and on the other hand of a warning, a sample or specimen of what is to be followed, or of what is to be shunned. An example, however, may be more than a sample or specimen of any class. It may be the very archetype or prototype to which the whole class must conform, as when Christ is spoken of as being an example or leaving an example for his disciples. Example comes nearer to the possible freedom of the model than to the necessary exactness of the pattern. Often we cannot, in a given case, exactly imitate the best example, but only adapt its teachings to altered circumstances. In its application to a person or thing, exemplar can scarcely be distinguished from example, but example is most frequently used for an act, or course of action, for which exemplar is not used, as, one sets a good, or a bad, example. An exemplification is an illustrative working out in action of a principle or law, without any reference to its being copied or repeated. An example guides, an exemplification illustrates or explains. Ensample is the same as example, but is practically obsolete outside of scriptural or theological language. Compare model, sample. Start of a new word, excess. Excess. Synonyms: dissipation, lavishness, redundance, surplus, exorbitance, overplus, redundancy, waste, extravagance, prodigality, superabundance, wastefulness. Intemperance, profusion, superfluity. Excess is more than enough of anything, and, since this in very many cases indicates a lack either of judgment or of self-control, the word is used frequently in an unfavorable sense. Careless expenditure in excess of income is extravagance. We may have also extravagance of language, professions, etc. As extravagance is excess in outlay, exorbitance is excess in demands, and especially in pecuniary demands upon others. Overplus and superabundance denote in the main a satisfactory, and superfluity an undesirable, excess, lavishness and profusion, a generous, bountiful, or amiable excess, as, a profusion of fair hair, lavishness of hospitality. Surplus is neutral, having none of the unfavorable meaning that often attaches to excess. A surplus is that which remains over after all demands are met. Redundance or redundancy refers chiefly to literary style, denoting an excess of words or matter. Excess in the moral sense is expressed by dissipation, prodigality, intemperance, etc. Antonyms: dearth, destitution, frugality, lack, scantiness, defect, economy, inadequacy, need, shortcoming, deficiency, failure, insufficiency, poverty, want. Start of a new word, execute. Execute. Synonyms: administer, carry out, do, enforce, perform. To execute is to follow through to the end, put into absolute and final effect in action. To administer is to conduct as one holding a trust, as a minister and not an originator. The sheriff executes a writ, the trustee administers an estate, a charity, etc. To enforce is to put into effect by force, actual or potential. To administer the laws is the province of a court of justice. To execute the laws is the province of a sheriff, marshal, constable, or other executive officer. To administer the law is to declare or apply it. To execute the law is to put it in force, for this enforce is the more general word, execute the more specific. From signifying to superintend officially some application or infliction, administer passes by a natural transition to signify inflict, mete out, dispense, and blows, medicine, etc., are said to be administered, a usage thoroughly established and reputable in spite of pedantic objections. Enforce signifies also to present and urge home by intellectual and moral force, as, to enforce a precept or a duty. Compare do, kill, make. Start of a new word, exercise. Exercise. Synonyms: act, application, exertion, performance, action, drill, occupation, practice, activity, employment, operation, use. Exercise, in the ordinary sense, is the easy natural action of any power. Exertion is the putting of any power to strain and tax. An exercise drive for a horse is so much as will develop strength and health and not appreciably weary. But by qualifying adjectives we may bring exercise up to the full sense of exertion, as violent exercise. Exercise is action taken at any time with a view to employing, maintaining, or increasing power, or merely for enjoyment. Practice is systematic exercise with a view to the acquirement of facility and skill in some pursuit. A person takes a walk for exercise, or takes time for practice on the piano. Practice is also used of putting into action and effect what one has learned or holds as a theory, as, the practice of law or medicine. A profession of religion is good, but the practice of it is better. Drill is systematic, rigorous, and commonly enforced practice under a teacher or commander. Compare habit. Antonyms: idleness, inaction, inactivity, relaxation, rest. Start of a new word, expense. Expense. Synonyms: cost, expenditure, outgo, outlay. The cost of a thing is whatever one surrenders or gives up for it, intentionally or unintentionally, or even unconsciously. Expense is what is laid out by calculation or intention. We say, he won his fame at the cost of his life. I know it to my cost. We speak of a joke at another's expense. At another's cost would seem to make it a more serious matter. There is a tendency to use cost of what we pay for a possession, expense of what we pay for a service. We speak of the cost of goods, the expense of making up. Outlay is used of some definite expenditure, as for the purchase of supplies, outgo of a steady drain or of incidental expenses. See price. Antonyms: gain, proceeds, profit, receipt, return, income, product, profits, receipts, returns. Start of a new word, explicit. Explicit. Synonym: express. Both explicit and express are opposed to what is merely implicit or implied. That which is explicit is unfolded, so that it may not be obscure, doubtful, or ambiguous. That which is express is uttered or stated so decidedly that it may not be forgotten nor overlooked. An explicit statement is too clear to be misunderstood, an express command is too emphatic to be disregarded. Compare clear. Antonyms: ambiguous, implicit, indefinite, uncertain, doubtful, implied, indeterminate, vague. Start of a new word, extemporaneous. Extemporaneous. Synonyms: extemporary, impromptu, offhand, extempore, improvised, unpremeditated. Extemporaneous, originally signifying of or from the time or occasion, has come to mean done or made with but little, if any, preparation, and is now chiefly applied to addresses of which the thought has been prepared, and only the language and incidental treatment left to the suggestion of the moment, so that an extemporaneous speech is understood to be any one that is not read or recited. Impromptu keeps its original sense, denoting something that springs from the instant, the impromptu. Utterance is generally brief, direct, and vigorous. The extemporaneous speech may chance to be prosy. Offhand is still more emphatic as to the readiness and freedom of the utterance. Unpremeditated is graver and more formal, denoting absolute want of preparation, but is rather too heavy a word to be applied to such apt, ready utterance as is generally designated by impromptu. Antonyms: elaborated, premeditated, prepared, read, recited, studied, written. Start of a new word: exterminate. Exterminate. Synonyms: annihilate, eradicate, overthrow, uproot, banish, expel, remove, wipe out. Destroy, extirpate, root out, exterminate, lx, out, and terminus, a boundary, signified primarily to drive beyond the bounds or limits of a country. The word is applied to races of men or animals, and is now almost exclusively used for removal by death. Individuals are now said to be banished or expelled. Eradicate, out, and radix, root, is primarily applied to numbers or groups of plants which it is desired to remove effectually from the soil. A single tree may be uprooted, but is not said to be eradicated. We labor to eradicate or root out noxious weeds. To extirpate, lx, out, and stirps, stem, stalk, is not only to destroy the individuals of any race of plants or animals, but the very stock, so that the race can never be restored. We speak of eradicating a disease, of extirpating a cancer, exterminating wild beasts or hostile tribes. We seek to eradicate or extirpate all vices and evils. Compare, abolish. Antonyms: augment, build up, develop, increase, populate, replenish, beget, cherish, foster, plant, propagate, settle. Breed, colonize. Start of a new word: faint. Faint. Synonyms: dim, fatigued, irresolute, weak, exhausted, feeble, languid, wearied, fated, half-hearted, listless, worn, faint-hearted, ill-defined, purposeless, worn down, faltering, indistinct, timid, worn out. Faint, with the general sense of lacking strength or effectiveness, covers a wide range of meaning, signifying overcome with physical weakness or exhaustion, or lacking in purpose, courage, or energy, a set of persons. Or lacking definiteness or distinctness of color or sound, a set of written characters, voices, or musical notes. A person may be faint when physically wearied, or when overcome with fear. He may be a faint adherent because naturally feeble or purposeless, or because half-hearted in the cause. He may be a faltering supporter because naturally irresolute or because faint-hearted and timid in view of perils that threaten, a listless worker, through want of mental energy and purpose. Written characters may be faint or dim either because originally written with poor ink, or because they have become faded by time and exposure. Antonyms: bright, clear, daring, fresh, resolute, sturdy, brilliant, conspicuous, energetic, hearty, strong, vigorous. Prepositions: faint with hunger, faint in color. Start of a new word: faith. Faith. Synonyms: assent, confidence, credit, opinion, assurance, conviction, creed, reliance, belief, credence, doctrine, trust. Belief, as an intellectual process, is the acceptance of something as true on other grounds than personal observation and experience. We give credence to a report, assent to a proposition or to a proposal. Belief is stronger than credence. Credence might be described as a prima facie belief. Credence is a more formal word than belief, and seems to imply somewhat more of volition. We speak of giving credence to a report, but not of giving belief. Goods are sold on credit. We give one credit for good intentions. Conviction is a belief established by argument or evidence. Assurance is belief beyond the reach of argument, as the Christian's assurance of salvation. An opinion is a general conclusion held as probable, though without full certainty. A persuasion is a more confident opinion, involving the heart as well as the intellect. In religion, a doctrine is a statement of belief regarding a single point. A creed is a summary statement of doctrines. Confidence is a firm dependence upon a statement as true, or upon a person as worthy. Reliance is confidence on which we act or are ready to act unquestioningly. We have a calm reliance upon the uniformity of nature. Trust is a practical and tranquil resting of the mind upon the integrity, kindness, friendship, or promises of a person. We have trust in God. Faith is a union of belief and trust. Faith is chiefly personal, belief may be quite impersonal. We speak of belief of a proposition, faith in a promise, because the promise emanates from a person. But belief in a person is often used with no appreciable difference from faith. In religion it is common to distinguish between intellectual belief of religious truth, as any other truth might be believed, and belief of the heart, or saving faith. Antonyms: denial, dissent, doubt, infidelity, rejection, suspicion, disbelief, distrust, incredulity, misgiving, skepticism, unbelief. Prepositions: have faith in God, the faith of the gospel. Start of a new word: faithful. Faithful. Synonyms: devoted, incorruptible, stanch, true, trusty, firm, loyal, sure, trustworthy, unwavering. A person is faithful who will keep faith, whether with or without power to aid or serve. A person or thing is trusty that possesses such qualities as to justify the fullest confidence and dependence. We may speak of a faithful but feeble friend. We say a trusty agent, a trusty steed, a trusty sword. Antonyms: capricious, false, unfaithful, untrustworthy, faithless, fickle, untrue, wavering. Prepositions: faithful in service, to duty, to comrade or commander, faithful among the faithless. Start of a new word: fame. Fame. Synonyms: celebrity, eminence, honor, notoriety, reputation, credit, glory, laurels, renown, repute. Distinction: fame is the widely disseminated report of a person's character, deeds, or abilities, and is oftenest used in the favorable sense. Reputation and repute are more limited than fame, and may be either good or bad. Notoriety is evil repute or a dishonorable counterfeit of fame. Eminence and distinction may result from rank, station, or character. Celebrity is limited in range. We speak of local celebrity, or worldwide fame. Fame in its best sense may be defined as the applause of numbers. Renown, as such applause worthily won. We speak of the conqueror's fame, the patriot's renown. Glory and honor are of good import. Honor may be given for qualities or acts that should not win it, but it is always given as something good and worthy. We can speak of an evil fame, but not of evil honor. Glory has a more exalted and often a sacred sense. Antonyms: contempt, discredit, dishonor, humiliation, infamy, obscurity, contumely, disgrace, disrepute, ignominy, oblivion, shame. Start of a new word: fanaticism. Fanaticism. Synonyms: bigotry, credulity, intolerance, superstition. Fanaticism is extravagant or even frenzied zeal. Bigotry is obstinate and unreasoning attachment to a cause or creed. Fanaticism and bigotry usually include intolerance, which is unwillingness to tolerate beliefs or opinions contrary to one's own. Superstition is ignorant and irrational religious belief. Credulity is not distinctively religious, but is a general readiness to believe without sufficient evidence, with a proneness to accept the marvelous. Bigotry is narrow, fanaticism is fierce, superstition is ignorant, credulity is weak, intolerance is severe. Bigotry has not the capacity to reason fairly, fanaticism has not the patience, superstition has not the knowledge and mental discipline, intolerance has not the disposition. Bigotry, fanaticism, and superstition are perversions of the religious sentiment. Credulity and intolerance often accompany skepticism or atheism. Antonyms: cynicism, freethinking, indifference, latitudinarianism. Start of a new word: fanciful. Fanciful. Synonyms: chimerical, fantastic, grotesque, imaginative, visionary. That is fanciful which is dictated or suggested by fancy independently of more serious considerations. The fantastic is the fanciful with the added elements of whimsicalness and extravagance. The fanciful swings away from the real or the ordinary lightly and pleasantly, the fantastic extravagantly, the grotesque ridiculously. A fanciful arrangement of objects is commonly pleasing, a fantastic arrangement is striking, a grotesque arrangement is laughable. A fanciful theory or suggestion may be clearly recognized as such. A visionary scheme is erroneously supposed to have a basis in fact. Compare synonyms for dream, idea, imagination. Antonyms: accurate, commonplace, prosaic, regular, sound, calculable, literal, real, sensible, sure, calculated, ordinary, reasonable, solid, true. Start of a new word: fancy. Fancy. Synonyms: belief, desire, imagination, predilection, caprice, humor, inclination, supposition, conceit, idea, liking, vagary, conception, image, mood, whim. An intellectual fancy is a mental image or picture founded upon slight or whimsical association or resemblance. A conceit has less of the picturesque and more of the theoretic than a fancy. A conceit is somewhat aside from the common laws of reasoning, as a fancy is lighter and more airy than the common mode of thought. A conceit or fancy may be wholly unfounded, while a conception always has, or is believed to have, some answering reality. Compare reason. An intellectual fancy or conceit may be pleasing or amusing, but is never worth serious discussion. We speak of a mere fancy, a droll or odd conceit. An emotional or personal fancy is a capricious liking formed with slight reason and no exercise of judgment, and liable to fade as lightly as it was formed. In a broader sense, the fancy signifies the faculty by which fancies or mental images are formed, associated, or combined. Compare synonyms for dream, idea, imagination. Antonyms: actuality, certainty, fact, reality, truth, verity. Prepositions: to have a fancy for or take a fancy to a person or thing. Start of a new word: farewell. Farewell. Synonyms: adieu, goodbye, parting salutation, valedictory. Congé, leave-taking, valediction. Goodbye is the homely and hearty, farewell the formal English word at parting. Adieu, from the French, is still more ceremonious than farewell. Congé, also from the French, is commonly contemptuous or supercilious, and equivalent to dismissal. Valediction is a learned word never in popular use. A valedictory is a public farewell to a company or assembly. Prepositions: I bade farewell to my comrades, or, without preposition, I bade my comrades farewell, I took a sad farewell of my friends. Start of a new word: fear. Fear. Synonyms: affright, dismay, horror, timidity, apprehension, disquietude, misgiving, trembling, awe, dread, panic, tremor, consternation, fright, terror, trepidation. Fear is the generic term denoting an emotion excited by threatening evil with a desire to avoid or escape it. Fear may be sudden or lingering, in view of present, of imminent, or of distant and only possible danger. In the latter sense dread is oftener used. Horror, etymologically a shivering or shuddering, denotes a shuddering fear accompanied with abhorrence or such a shock to the feelings and sensibilities as may exist without fear, as when one suddenly encounters some ghastly spectacle. We say of a desperate but fettered criminal, I looked upon him with horror. Where horror includes fear, it is fear mingled with abhorrence. See abhor. Affright, fright, and terror are always sudden, and in actual presence of that which is terrible. Fear may overwhelm, or may nerve one to desperate defense. Fright and terror render one incapable of defense. Fear may be controlled by force of will. Fright and terror overwhelm the will. Terror paralyzes. Fright may cause one to fly, to scream, or to swoon. Fright is largely a matter of the nerves, fear of the intellect and the imagination, terror of all the faculties, bodily and mental. Panic is a sudden fear or fright, affecting numbers at once. Vast armies or crowded audiences are liable to panic upon slight occasion. In a like sense we speak of a financial panic. Dismay is a helpless sinking of heart in view of some overwhelming peril or sorrow. Dismay is more reflective, enduring, and despairing than fright. A horse is subject to fright or terror, but not to dismay. Awe is a reverential fear. Compare alarm. Antonyms: see synonyms for fortitude. Start of a new word: feminine. Feminine. Synonyms: effeminate, female, womanish, womanly. We apply female to the sex, feminine to the qualities, especially the finer physical or mental qualities that distinguish the female sex in the human family, or to the objects appropriate for or especially employed by them. A female voice is the voice of a woman, a feminine voice may belong to a man. Womanish denotes the undesirable, womanly the admirable or lovely qualities of woman. Womanly tears would suggest respect and sympathy, womanish tears a touch of contempt. The word effeminate is always used reproachfully, and only of men as possessing womanly traits such as are inconsistent with true manliness. Antonyms, see synonyms for masculine. Start of a new word, fetter. Fetter. Synonyms, bondage, custody, gyves, irons, bonds, durance, handcuffs, manacles, chains, duress, imprisonment, shackles. Bonds may be of cord, leather, or any other substance that can bind, chains are of linked metal. Manacles and handcuffs are for the hands, fetters are primarily chains or jointed iron fastenings for the feet, gyves may be for either. A shackle is a metallic ring, clasp, or bracelet-like fastening for encircling and restraining a limb, commonly one of a pair, used either for hands or feet. Bonds, fetters, and chains are used in a general way for almost any form of restraint. Gyves is now wholly poetic, and the other words are mostly restricted to the literary style. Handcuffs is the specific and irons the general term in popular usage, as, the prisoner was put in irons. Bonds, chains, and shackles are frequently used in the metaphorical sense. Start of a new word, feud. Feud. Synonyms, affray, brawl, contest, dissension, hostility, animosity, broil, controversy, enmity, quarrel, bitterness, contention, dispute, fray, strife. A feud is enmity between families, clans, or parties, with acts of hostility mutually retaliated and avenged. Feud is rarely used of individuals, never of nations. While all the other words of the group may refer to that which is transient, a feud is long-enduring, and often hereditary. Dissension is used of a number of persons, of a party or other organization. Bitterness is in feeling only, enmity and hostility involve will and purpose to oppose or injure. A quarrel is in word or act, or both, and is commonly slight and transient, as we speak of childish quarrels. Contention and strife may be in word or deed, contest ordinarily involves some form of action. Contest is often used in a good sense, contention and strife very rarely so. Controversy is commonly in words, strife extends from verbal controversy to the contests of armies. Affray, brawl, and broil, like quarrel, are words of inferior dignity. An affray or broil may arise at a street corner. The affray always involves physical force, the brawl or broil may be confined to violent language. Start of a new word, fiction. Fiction. Synonyms, allegory, fabrication, invention, myth, romance, apologue, falsehood, legend, novel, story. Fable, figment. Fiction is now chiefly used of a prose work in narrative form in which the characters are partly or wholly imaginary, and which is designed to portray human life, with or without a practical lesson. A romance portrays what is picturesque or striking, as a mere fiction may not do. Novel is a general name for any continuous fictitious narrative, especially a love story. Fiction and novel are used with little difference of meaning, except that novel characterizes a work in which the emotional element is especially prominent. The moral of the fable is expressed formally, the lesson of the fiction, if any, is inwrought. A fiction is studied, a myth grows up without intent. A legend may be true, but cannot be historically verified. A myth has been received as true at some time, but is now known to be false. A fabrication is designed to deceive. It is a less odious word than falsehood, but is really stronger, as a falsehood may be a sudden unpremeditated statement, while a fabrication is a series of statements carefully studied and fitted together in order to deceive. The falsehood is all false, the fabrication may mingle the true with the false. A figment is something imaginary which the one who utters it may or may not believe to be true. We say, that statement is a figment of his imagination. The story may be either true or false, and covers the various senses of all the words in the group. Apologue, a word simply transferred from Greek into English, is the same as fable. Compare allegory. Antonyms: certainty, fact, history, literalness, reality, truth, verity. Start of a new word: fierce. Fierce. Synonyms: ferocious, furious, raging, uncultivated, violent, fiery, impetuous, savage, untrained, wild. Fierce signifies having a furious and cruel nature, or being in a furious and cruel mood, more commonly the latter. It applies to that which is now intensely excited, or liable to intense and sudden excitement. Ferocious refers to a state or disposition. That which is fierce flashes or blazes, that which is ferocious steadily burns. We speak of a ferocious animal, a fierce passion. A fiery spirit with a good disposition is quickly excitable in a good cause, but may not be fierce or ferocious. Savage signifies untrained, uncultivated. Ferocious always denotes a tendency to violence. It is more distinctly bloodthirsty than the other words. A person may be deeply, intensely cruel, and not at all ferocious. A ferocious countenance expresses habitual ferocity. A fierce countenance may express habitual fierceness, or only the sudden anger of the moment. That which is wild is simply unrestrained. The word may imply no anger or harshness, as wild delight, wild alarm. Antonyms: affectionate, gentle, kind, patient, submissive, tame, docile, harmless, mild, peaceful, sweet, tender. Start of a new word: financial. Financial. Synonyms: fiscal, monetary, pecuniary. These words all relate to money, receipts, or expenditures. Monetary relates to actual money, coin, currency. As the monetary system, a monetary transaction is one in which money is transferred. Pecuniary refers to that in which money is involved, but less directly. We speak of one's pecuniary affairs or interests, with no special reference to the handling of cash. Financial applies especially to governmental revenues or expenditures, or to private transactions of considerable moment. We speak of a pecuniary reward, a financial enterprise. We give a needy person pecuniary, not financial, assistance. It is common to speak of the fiscal rather than the financial year. Start of a new word: fine. Fine. Synonyms: beautiful, excellent, polished, small, clarified, exquisite, pure, smooth, clear, gauzy, refined, splendid, comminuted, handsome, sensitive, subtle, dainty, keen, sharp, subtle, delicate, minute, slender, tenuous, elegant, nice, slight, thin. Fine, finus, end, denotes that which has been brought to a full end, finished. From this root sense many derived meanings branch out, causing words quite remote from each other to be alike synonyms of fine. That which is truly finished, brought to an ideal end, is excellent of its kind, and beautiful, if a thing that admits of beauty, as a fine house, fine trees, a fine woman, a fine morning. If a thing that admits of the removal of impurities, it is not finished till these are removed, and hence fine signifies clarified, clear, pure, refined, as fine gold. That which is finished is apt to be polished, smooth to the touch, minutely exact in outline. Hence fine comes to be a synonym for all words like dainty, delicate, exquisite, as fine manners, a fine touch, fine perceptions. As that which is delicate is apt to be small, by an easy extension of meaning fine becomes a synonym for slender, slight, minute, comminuted, as a fine thread, fine sand, or for filmy, tenuous, thin, as a fine lace, fine wire, and as a thin edge is keen, sharp. Fine becomes also a synonym for these words, as a fine point, a fine edge. Compare beautiful, minute. Antonyms: big, clumsy, great, huge, large, stout, blunt, coarse, heavy, immense, rude, thick. Start of a new word: fire. Fire. Synonyms: blaze, burning, combustion, conflagration, flame. Combustion is the essential fact which is at the basis of that assemblage of visible phenomenon which we call fire, combustion being the continuous chemical combination of a substance with some element, as oxygen. Evolving heat, and extending from slow processes, such as those by which the heat of the human body is maintained, to the processes producing the most intense light also, as in a blast furnace, or on the surface of the sun. Fire is always attended with light, as well as heat, blaze, flame, etc., designate the mingled light and heat of a fire. Combustion is the scientific, fire the popular term. A conflagration is an extensive fire. Compare light. Start of a new word, flock. Flock. Synonyms: bevy, covey, group, herd, lot, set, brood, drove, hatch, litter, pack, swarm. Group is the general word for any gathering of a small number of objects, whether of persons, animals, or inanimate things. The individuals in a brood or litter are related to each other, those in the other groups may not be. Brood is used chiefly of fowls and birds, litter of certain quadrupeds which bring forth many young at a birth. We speak of a brood of chickens, a litter of puppies. Brood is sometimes applied to a family of young children. Bevy is used of birds, and figuratively of any bright and lively group of women or children, but rarely of men. Flock is applied to birds and to some of the smaller animals. Herd is confined to the larger animals. We speak of a bevy of quail, a covey of partridges, a flock of blackbirds, or a flock of sheep, a herd of cattle, horses, buffaloes, or elephants, a pack of wolves, a pack of hounds, a swarm of bees. A collection of animals driven or gathered for driving is called a drove. Start of a new word, fluctuate. Fluctuate. Synonyms: hesitate, swerve, vacillate, veer, oscillate, undulate, vary, waver. To fluctuate, fluctus, a wave, is to move like a wave with alternate rise and fall. A pendulum oscillates, waves fluctuate or undulate, a light or a flame wavers, a frightened steed swerves from his course, a tool or weapon swerves from the mark or line, the temperature varies, the wind veers when it suddenly changes its direction. That which veers may steadily hold the new direction. That which oscillates, fluctuates, undulates, or wavers returns upon its way. As regards mental states, he who hesitates sticks, on the verge of decision. He who wavers does not stick to a decision. He who vacillates decides now one way, and now another. One vacillates between contrasted decisions or actions. He may waver between decision and indecision, or between action and inaction. Persons hesitate, vacillate, waver, feelings fluctuate or vary. Compare shake. Antonyms: abide, adhere, hold fast, persist, stand fast, stay, stick. Start of a new word, fluid. Fluid. Synonyms: gas, liquid. A fluid is a substance that, like air or water, yields to any force that tends to change its form. A liquid is a body in that state in which the particles move freely among themselves, but remain in one mass, keeping the same volume, but taking always the form of the containing vessel. A liquid is an inelastic fluid. A gas is an elastic fluid that tends to expand to the utmost limits of the containing space. All liquids are fluids, but not all fluids are liquids. Air and all the gases are fluids, but they are not liquids under ordinary circumstances, though capable of being reduced to a liquid form by special means, as by cold and pressure. Water at the ordinary temperature is at once a fluid and a liquid. Start of a new word, follow. Follow. Synonyms: accompany, come after, go after, obey, pursue, attend, copy, heed, observe, result, chase, ensue, imitate, practice, succeed. Anything that comes after or goes after another, either in space or in time, is said to follow it. A servant follows or attends his master. A victorious general may follow the retiring enemy merely to watch and hold him in check. He chases or pursues with intent to overtake and attack. The chase is closer and hotter than the pursuit. Compare synonyms for hunt. One event may follow another either with or without special connection. If it ensues, there is some orderly connection, as, the ensuing year. If it results from another, there is some relation of effect, consequence, or inference. A clerk observes his employer's directions. A child obeys his parents' commands, follows or copies his example, imitates his speech and manners. The compositor follows copy, the incoming succeeds the outgoing official.